A young dark-haired girl calls someone by name. She touches the young boy's face and calls him Inori. The young man does not understand who this girl is and why she is calling him. Suddenly, she pierces his heart with a dagger, splashing blood on his shirt. With tears in her eyes, she releases the dagger from her hands and begins to disappear, like the entire space around her. In the last seconds before losing consciousness, the guy looks at the girl and wonders why she did this. Suddenly, the main character wakes up and sees a manga volume in front of him, which he is holding in his hands. He sits at the back of the classroom in the middle of the school where he fell asleep during recess. The protagonist's name is Takafuji Inori. He is 17 years old and attends a Japanese high school. The young man realizes that it was just a dream and calms down, looking at his noisy classmates. But suddenly he sees a strange light illuminating the room from below. A large glowing seal appeared on the floor of the auditorium, with all the students present inside it. The light becomes too bright, capturing everyone in the circle. Inori manages to get up, but the next second, mysterious magic takes him away from his home world. A moment later, he comes to his senses in the middle of an empty white space. Something starts to glow above, as if the sun is breaking through a whitish veil of clouds. Takafuji's classmates panic and try to figure out what happened. The high school students want to know where they are and what's going on. A blonde girl in a beautiful dress flies out of the light and tells them not to be afraid. She explains that the students have embarked on the path of the soul and entered the so-called interworld. The girl calls herself a goddess and declares that they will be called to another world. There they will become heroes and help the locals overthrow the Demon King. The school children don't believe her and continue to consider what is happening a strange joke. The goddess continues. Their souls will be transferred to the world of sword and magic of Belze in the kingdom of Hygen. A high school student asks the goddess what it means to be called. Inori thinks that the events are happening like in a manga about being transported to other worlds. The goddess asks them not to worry and promises to give each one a special gift before the call. The hand of the goddess appears over each person present, granting them a portion of her power. Everyone received special abilities, and the goddess finally asks them not to become intoxicated with power and to be righteous. The action takes place in the main castle of the kingdom of Hygen in another world. Inori's class appears on the floor of the throne room, becoming a team of heroes. The courtiers joyfully exclaim and praise the high priestess, who successfully summoned the heroes. The king on the throne loudly demands silence to calm the agitated nobles. The monarch, wearing a crown and an expensive robe, stands up and addresses those who have come from another world. He introduces himself as Risen Hagen, the leader of the Hygen kingdom, and kneels, begging the heroes to defeat the Demon King. Inori looks at the unusual greeting from the head of the kingdom in surprise. His classmate comes forward and asks the king to raise his head. The guy asks if they will be able to return back to their world later. Saint Isaiah, who called them, answers that they will have such an opportunity. Exactly 1 month from now, on the next full moon, they will be able to move into their reality. And if they don't want to fight the Demon King, then they'll have to spend this month in the castle. A gloomy Inori mentally notes that this is more like an excursion to another world than a summoning of heroes. Classmates ask the saint how much time will pass in their world this month. Isaiah reassures them that they will return the moment they were called. Takafuji thinks that it all sounds too good and smooth. Isaiah asks the class if there are any among them who do not want to fight and will wait until the next full moon. She assures that no one will judge them, but humbly asks them to save the country and this world. Inori believes that such a greeting is a hackneyed technique to inspire the newcomers. The school children break into groups and quietly confer. Inori hopes that there are no people among them so stupid that they will fall for the speeches of the king and the saint. A classmate in glasses asks to give them a month to think and make a decision. Takafuji notes that it's a good idea and that he himself would have done something similar. The king agrees to their condition and asks them to decide in a month whether they will become heroes or return to their world. And today they have a feast and he invites them to enjoy royal food. Inori is pleased with this luck and prepares to taste the delicacies of another world. Suddenly the floor above him starts to glow, just like it did in the classroom before. He sees a similar yellow seal and thinks that they will be transported to the banquet. A classmate calls out to him and asks why the summoning circle appeared only under him. Inori realizes that only he is being moved, and the seal is fully activated. The protagonist returns back to the empty reality where the goddess called them. She welcomes the new wanderer who has entered the path of the soul. The goddess introduces herself and suddenly notices the strangeness of what is happening. Inori greets the goddess he met a few minutes ago. The goddess remembers him and asks why he appeared here again. The all-powerful girl is confused and tries to understand how this could have happened. Inori assumes that she summoned him again, but the goddess is not sure. In any case, the rules remain the rules, and he must receive a new gift. The goddess wishes him luck, and a yellow seal appears under the young man, taking him to another world. This time he appears in a scientific complex with large antennas on the roof. Inori wakes up in a chair, bound with a chain, thick cords, and a gag in his mouth. The man with the appearance of a mad scientist is happy that his call was successful. The younger assistant is also pleased with the result and calls Inori experiment number 12. Scientists hope that he will be the one with the magic eye. The protagonist looks at the happy psychos, trying not to attract attention. Inori thinks gloomily that this world is too hard for a second time. The mad scientists demand that he not blink and prepare to remove his eye. The doctor is excitedly jubilant that they have finally gotten a real magic eye under the knife. It is given to people from another world at the moment they cross the boundary of dimensions. Inori's eye actually turned red, and the pupil took on the shape of a complex pattern. The doctor states that it is their job to summon heroes and take away their magical powers. Takafuji notes that this time his gift from the goddess is this very eye. The doctor creates a hypnotic magic seal to administer anesthesia before surgery. Inori looks at the magic circle gloomily, but feels nothing. The doctor, confused, says that his hypnosis has almost no effect. The protagonist listens to him grumble about first-class hypnosis that for some reason didn't work. The assistant suddenly shouts and points to Inori's second eye. The scientist states that the guy's right eye is all-seeing and his left eye is formation. The crazy doctors are delighted to have come across a rare specimen with heterochromia. They decide to postpone the hypnosis and continue the experiment without anesthesia. Inori understands that these psychos are now going to torture him and take out his eyes. The guy tries to break free from the bonds, not wanting to end his life like this. Suddenly, a third summoning circle appears below him, now green. The scientists fall silent and look at the test subject in surprise. A delighted Inori is transported to another reality again. After a moment, he looks at the goddess with imperturbability. The surprised girl looks at the guest, not knowing what to do with him. She says this is the third time and jokes that he must have fallen in love with her. Inori asks why he keeps coming back here. The goddess replies that this is the first time something like this has happened to her, but promises to sort it out the next time he appears. A green summoning circle appears beneath him and takes the boy to another world. In a room of an expensive mansion, a young aristocrat and her elven servant are looking at him. The maid praises the talent of her mistress, who summoned an anthropomorphic monster on the first try. The young man says that he is not a monster, and the girls are even happier because he can talk. They mistook him for a demon and were already about to sign a contract of service. But then a red summoning circle appeared and Inori was pulled back. The guy greets the goddess with a smile, but she was already tired of his constant returns. He asks what she learned and the goddess begins to tell. The summoning circle always chooses a person with a strong soul, capable of crossing the border of worlds. But Inori's soul proved too strong and the circle calls him again and again. The young man says that this is strange, because he cannot even call himself a good person, let alone a hero. The goddess replies that his morality is not important. Only the strength of the inner self matters. If his soul in the other world is secured by a hero contract, he will not be called back. He is then transported to the royal castle, where the princess studies his skills. Inori notes that he has already received 4 divine gifts. He then demanded that a hero contract be concluded with him as quickly as possible. But then a black summoning circle appeared beneath him, and the guy was again drawn into another reality. This time, he was summoned by black magic by a tired girl asking for help. Having heard nothing about a contract, Inori lay down on the floor and began to wait for a new call. The orange circle transported him to a gloomy citadel on the top of the mountain. The demon army warmly welcomes the phlegmatic Inori as the resurrected demon king. Soon, he returns to the divine reality again. The goddess notices that he has collected quite a few of her gifts. The young man agrees with her, feeling the dark power overwhelming him. The goddess suddenly declares that the next summoning will be the last. As a final gift, she helps him put all his skills together and advises him to look at the system once it's in place. Inori appears behind 3 Japanese high school students who are being greeted by the local king. The first of those called up is 17-year-old Shinzaki Ryuto. The second is 17-year-old Karasawa Tamaki. And the third is 16-year-old Isogai Aoi. They are all from the same school and exchange brief greetings before Inori quietly sits in the back. The king, confused, says that there should be 3 heroes. Takafuji gloomily thinks that there are 4 of them, and that the 3 of them know each other. The protagonist realizes that he was simply thrown into someone else's call. Inori and the 3 heroes look at the king expectantly. The monarch does not understand what is happening and asks how this is possible. How could the stranger appear along with the 3 specially summoned heroes? But if he was really thrown into contact with others, then nothing can be done about it. To the left of the king, a young girl steps forward and addresses the heroes. The first princess claims that she personally performed the summoning. Inori thinks it's another manga cliché, the haughty tsundere princess. The princess demands to be thanked for summoning her to the kingdom of the rising sun. She says that in this world, besides people, there live half-humans and demons. But the demons, led by the king, created their own country and are now attacking their borders. Therefore, the Makard Empire demanded that all kingdoms within it summon heroes. But only girls of royal blood can perform the summoning. Each country trains its heroes to fight demons. The princess is confident that this plan is truly magnificent. Inori is confident that the tactic of using quantity over quality will certainly not save you from strong enemies. The princess demands that the heroes of the rising sun work hard and defeat the demon king. Shinzaki Ryuto asks permission to ask a question. The princess guesses that he wants to know about returning to his world. She states that there is no way to go back. The cheeky girl says they should be grateful for the call to this country. Inori thinks that this princess could learn from the Hygen kingdom how to host guests. The king asks the heroes to touch the tablet to discover its blessings. The priest brings out a magic tablet. Takafuji lazily watches the other heroes. Shinzaki Ryuto receives the blessing of limit break. Isogai Aoi has gained the power of barrier creation. Karasawa Tamaki has gained an affinity with magic. And Takafuji Inori has the gift of detection. The protagonist notes that his new power does not fit in with the skills of the others. Then the test of physical and magical powers began. Ryuto has demonstrated superhuman physical abilities. Aoi was able to create powerful magical barriers. And Tamaki quickly mastered fire magic of destruction. But Inori's discovery turned out to be quite ordinary. He doesn't understand why his body has suddenly become so weak. The young man refuses to continue the test so as not to embarrass himself even more. In the evening, all the heroes gather in Ryuto's room for a conversation. Tamaki wonders why they called the weakling Inori. She claims that she wasn't very worried about him. Inori notes that he has met a second tsundere since she still worries about him. Ryuto says that detection is also a very useful skill. Shinzaki asks Aoi to protect Inori with her barriers. The protagonist notes that all 3 are very handsome and clearly lucky with active personal lives. Tamaki asks the others' opinions on whether they should stay in this country. Ryuto considers the possibility of escape. Suddenly, Inori loudly declares that it is wonderful here and they have been received very warmly. The young man shows them a notebook with the inscription, "We are being eavesdropped on, don't talk too much." His detection power helped him spot the spy. The new ability allows you to sense the presence of living beings within a small radius. Now the maid is eavesdropping on them from behind the door. She finished her work earlier and pretended to leave. Inori writes in her notebook a request to Aoi to create a barrier that will block out sound. The girl nods silently and activates her magic. She creates a green barrier and says she succeeded. Aoi states that he won't last long and they need to hurry. Ryuto praises her friend for her efforts. Inori thinks gloomily that this is no place for flirting. Tamaki wonders why they would eavesdrop on them. Ryuto reminds them that their power is out of this world, and they could become a potential threat to the country. Tamaki is outraged by this attitude, because it was they who were called here. Inori notes that this country is clearly going through hard times. In his opinion, the state is in a financial crisis. The king has too few servants here, and there are almost no guards in the palace. Tamaki recalls the lavish banquet that was given to them upon their arrival. Inori replies that the food was ordinary, but the spices enhanced the flavor. Even Ryuto's room looks more like a soldier's quarters than a hero's quarters. The young man recalls his first call-up to Hagen, where the situation was different. Takafuji suggests thinking about escaping and trying to return to your world. With his strength, they will be able to pass by the army and escape from pursuit. And the princess definitely lied about the impossibility of returning so that they would stay. Ryuto agrees with him, but they don't yet have the strength or knowledge to return on their own. Suddenly, Tamaki leans towards Inori's head. She notices that his left eye is completely yellow. The young man completely forgot that this eye color attracts attention. Ryuto tells Tamaki that some topics are best left untouched. Everyone goes through this, some sooner, some later. Ryuto confuses yellow eye with 8th grade syndrome, much to Inori's dismay. The protagonist decides to play along and declares the great power of his eye. After the meeting, he returns to his room and decides to look at his statistics. The system window shows that all of his stats are close to 1,000, and his intelligence is over 2,500. If this is true, then why did he show such results in the tests? Next, Inori decides to study her skills. Besides detection, the list includes skill steal, black magic, and magic eyes, the right all-seeing and the left formation. He recalls that during his 3rd call-up, he was called a monster. It was then that he ceased to be human and received the status of demon vampire. He then sees the reason for his previous weakness, the hatred of the sun. God penalty reduces his strength to 1/10 during the daytime. Inori remembers that the sun really did shine brightly today, and the dinner was clearly inedible because of the garlic. He realizes that he didn't just find Aoi and Tamaki beautiful. He was attracted by the strong blood of heroes flowing through their veins. Focused on detection today, he completely forgot about his other skills. The guy thinks that he can still hide his heterochromia and vampire nature. But now you need to study all your abilities. Detection allows one to sense living beings within the range of perception. He takes the candlestick and takes out a candle. The young man uses the weapon creation skill on the candlestick. The candlestick turns into a large dagger with a shiny blade. Among the powers of the right all-seeing eye are the accurate recognition of moving objects, distance estimation, and microscopy, as well as clairvoyance, photographic memory, night vision, and resistance to illusions. The left eye of formations allows you to transfer any magic circle you see into your eye and activate it at any time. It's not clear yet, so the guy moves on to other skills. The list includes increased leveling speed by 5 times and true dark magic. The bloodsucker skill allows you to turn virgins into vampire servants and non-virgins into ghouls. If you sprinkle a ghoul with your blood after its death, it will become a subject. And if you suck someone's blood, you will gain the memory of the victim. This way, you can steal the skills of strong enemies by drinking their blood. Daytime weakness is quite a problem. But it's too early for Inori to write himself off. The next morning, the heroes gather at the training ground. The head of the Knights of the Kingdom of Igiana Izzy will be their mentor. Inori is surprised that the leader of the Knights turned out to be a young woman. He thought that such a thing was impossible in a medieval kingdom. Igiana tells the girls that even though they are magicians, their bodies will also have to be developed. Usually the leader starts with strength training, but not in this case. Inori understands that she is hinting at his weakness. He sees Ryuto's high physical stats exceeding 1,000. Tamaki is weaker, but she has a very high intelligence. Aoi has the same intelligence as Inori, but higher survivability. Igiana tells the trio to learn the basics of body control. But there will be a different approach to Inori. First, he will have to reach the level of training of an average warrior. A stern blonde watches Inori do push-ups. Under the scorching sun, his head hurts and he wants to sleep. Igiana says she will personally monitor him and encourage him for his success. The training is interrupted by the first princess and her retinue. Out of breath, Inori remembers yesterday's tsundere. Among the princess's servants, he notices a beautiful girl. Takafuji thinks she is too richly dressed to be a maid. Igiana welcomes the princesses of the kingdom. The second princess says that they came to watch the heroes train. The first princess continues to demand gratitude for her attention. The second princess approaches the lying Inori. She greets him with a fake smile, like a doll. The girl declares that he will spend the rest of the day with her. Soon she brings him to the classroom. Here the second princess will lecture him about this world. Inori thinks it's bad that he was put in a separate class. And the first princess teaches those three in a larger classroom. Previously, the tsundere announced that she would not teach a non-hero. Inori thinks that one day she will definitely take revenge. The second princess begins the first lesson. Takafuji asks her to stop for a moment. With a sweet smile, she awaits his questions. The young man asks if she is the younger sister of the first princess. The girl replies that she is actually a year older. But for some reason, the youngest princess will inherit the throne. Inori is satisfied with the answer and the lecture begins. First, the second princess tells the story of the kingdom. The country was founded by a witch from the heroes squad who defeated the former demon king. Due to her role in the country's creation, the kingdom is a matriarchy. The throne belongs to queens, and women can hold the highest positions. The king is always a regent and cannot directly rule the country. If the queen decides to divorce him, he will lose all power. The second princess continued her boring lecture. But Inori had already fallen asleep, unable to withstand the onslaught of theory. After sunset, he returns to his room. A young man studies a grimoire of magic, having borrowed it from the princess. She easily agreed and didn't even scold me for sleeping in class. In the book, he finds a spell seal. The guy activates the formation eye. He tries to keep the circle he saw in his eye. But nothing happens and the circle does not activate. Inori continues to leaf through the grimoire. After many attempts, none were successful. Next, Inori activates the all-seeing eye. He takes the papers and pen from the table. Takafuji tries to draw a circle he saw earlier from memory. The same circle from the world where he received those magical eyes. Then the mad doctor tried to subdue him with the seal of hypnosis. The scientist then called this hypnosis first class, even though it didn't work. The photographic memory of his right eye helped him recall all the details of that circle. Both the circle and the eye are from the same world, so it might work. Looking at the seal, Inori feels the power in the formation's left eye. For the test, the guy calls his maid Nala. He asks her not to worry and activates his left eye. That yellow circle appears in front of the formation's eye. A similar circle appears in front of Nala, but larger. The circle imprints itself in her eyes, completing the hypnosis. Nala's gaze takes on an impartial expression. The girl stands silently and looks ahead indifferently. When Inori asks about the color of her underwear, she immediately answers black. The protagonist checks it with the all-seeing eye and is convinced that the underwear is indeed black. Inori is glad that first-class hypnosis really works, and then he realizes that his left eye cannot retain circles from a world other than its own. If so, then for now he is only capable of hypnosis. The protagonist decides to draw the second circle seen in that world. That same yellow summoning circle that moves him between worlds. Inori retains the seal drawn on her left eye, and gains the ability to teleport through magic circles. The second summoning circle appears in the forest on the outskirts of the capital. Inori moves there using summoning magic. The left eye gives teleportation and hypnosis, and the right one helps to change these skills through drawing circles. Now the boy will be able to leave the castle whenever he wants. At night, he is in full force and decides to test his skills. First, he uses true dark magic. Dark energy allows him to control rocks and branches, lifting them into the air. The skill can only control inanimate matter. Controlled objects can be moved and hidden in their shadow. Also, controlled items cannot influence uncontrolled ones. But if you remove the control of dark energy, then everything works as before. It's convenient and completely inconvenient at the same time. Next, Inori tries to shift into his own shadow. Dark magic allows him to move in his shadow. The young man then decides to use a combination of skills. He casts weapon creation on the captured stone and turns it into a large longsword. Inori recalls today's training and remembers the movements of Egiana's sword. Taking the sword, the protagonist tries to repeat the blows of the head of the knights. Inori trains with the sword for some time. Tired, he feels a strange sense of triumph. The system shows that he has obtained the sword technique skill level 1. A pleased Inori realizes that this way he can gain new skills. He now thinks to increase the level, but hears a rustling sound behind the tree. Not far from him, he notices a strange creature. It turns out to be a bird-like demon named Katyu with high physical characteristics. Inori thinks that these birds are obviously valuable, since even his bed is stuffed with their feathers. Takafuji hesitates, thinking of hunting the simpler demons first. Using the shadow, he secretly assessed the strength of other demons in the forest. Everyone turned out to be strong, and some were even stronger than him. Inori thinks that either he is too weak or the demons here are too strong. He can beat them one-on-one, but if he gets surrounded, it will be bad. Meanwhile, the sound of heels can be heard in the halls of the royal castle. Egiana hears the sound of footsteps and goes out into the corridor. There she sees the second princess, whom she immediately condemns for walking without an escort. The princess wishes to have a short talk with the head of the knights. She asks Egiana why she doesn't use magical tools in hero training. The leader replies that they are now learning the art of mastering the body, not weapons. The princess doesn't understand why they shouldn't start with magical items right away. Egiana explains that heroes must rely on their own strength, not the power of magical weapons. According to the head of the knights, one must first master the body and then obtain such things. The princess smiles and states that as long as the people's strongest knight trains them, there is nothing to worry about. Egiana notices that she hasn't seen the princess's former smile for a long time. The girl turns away and says that her smile hasn't changed. Egiana asks her opinion about her sister, who will soon be queen. The princess says that she has talent and people love her. Egiana asks if she really believes this. The princess warns the chief that any wall can have ears. The knights might consider such speeches an insult to the kingdom. Egiana agrees with her, but thinks that there is no need to worry about it. A few days later, Inori continues to train with the heroes. Ryuto has shown great ability in close combat. Because of his talent, he now only learns sword techniques. Tamaki received a magic staff to enhance her spells, but for some reason he uses it like a regular club. Aoi learns to shoot a bow. She uses her barrier to protect herself while shooting. Inori notes that their squad is now balanced. Ryuto has now become a master of close-range combat. Tamaki has mastered ranged combat and destructive magic. Aoi's specialization is barrier defense and arrow fire support. Inori began training with daggers and throwing weapons. He also learned stealth and trap disarming. They want to make him into a scout, which will combine with his detection. But at night, he continues to train in the demon forest. Here, he no longer needs mentors to develop his skills. With dark magic, he can control the flight of daggers and release control just before hitting the target. Inori hopes to get rid of the hatred towards the sun god once she has leveled up enough. In the meantime, he decides to take up monster hunting. In the middle of the forest, he finds another bird-like demon. The monster stands carelessly in the middle of the clearing and does not look around. Inori quickly jumps out of the shadows and rushes towards the enemy. The demon notices the vampire's appearance, but it is too late. The protagonist uses his new technique on the monster. With the help of weapon crafting, he learned to make threads from dark magic. Black threads wrap around the enemy, holding him in place. The bird-like demon roars and struggles unsuccessfully in its bonds. Inori activates the left eye of formations. He uses the hypnosis seal, wanting to test it on the demon. The monster successfully submits to the vampire. Takafuji kills a motionless enemy with a dagger. He then uses dark magic to raise the monster's corpse. The young man hides the demon's body inside his shadow, where it is quite spacious. There is no need to worry about a surprise attack here. So Inori bares her fangs and prepares to eat. He begins drinking demon blood, hoping to level up. Having finished his meal, he emerges from the shadows to hunt again. The guy quickly finds another demon that looks like a dinosaur. It looks unpleasant, but there are no other options. Inori continues to hunt until dawn, devouring the monsters he finds. Through the teleport circle, he returns to the room and falls asleep. A few minutes later, Nala comes in and asks him to wake up. She remembers nothing about hypnosis and continues to consider it weak. Over the past 2 weeks, he had been able to extract a lot of valuable information from her. The current queen could not have children. And for a matriarchal country, daughters are essential. But in recent decades, many members of the royal family have died from illness. Therefore, the daughter of one count became the king's concubine and gave birth to a girl. It was Arya, now nicknamed the second princess. The people loved her and wanted to see her on the throne. But then the ruling couple had a daughter together. The queen adored her long-awaited daughter and named her Amanda. The girl also inherited her talent for magic, and she always bathed in the love of her mother, who made her the first heir. Arya lost her importance to the throne and all her efforts went to waste. When Amanda turned 7, she officially became the first princess. The pretenders quickly fell in love with the sweet girl who would one day become queen. Everyone stopped paying attention to Arya, who had faded into the shadow of her sister. Forgotten by everyone, she lives her life alone and always smiles like a doll. In class, Inori thinks they are similar. No one expects anything from them. Arya asks the young man not to fall asleep and to pay attention to the lecture. Inori yawns demonstratively as the girl talks about the importance of knowledge. The princess says that although he is not a magician, he is studying to be a scout and spy. Takafuji remembers that this world's magic really doesn't work for him. Even ordinary people like Nala can use simple magic. Arya reminds him that Egiana is always busy, but she finds time for him. But Inori is sure that it is only because of his status as a hero. Arya says that to become stronger, you need to try harder. She demands that the guy follow her. They walk down the dark stairs of the castle together. Soon, the couple finds themselves in front of a huge door. The princess uses magic to open the door and announces that lessons will be held here today. She says that everyone calls Inori a weakling, even though he is a hero. The princess is sure that he is clearly not pleased with this. Inori notices a sudden change in her mood. The past left an indelible mark on her. She locked all her emotions inside herself and began to live like a soulless doll. But now she has become different. Now she really looks like a real princess. They walk into the center of a large room. Arya says he might be kicked out of the castle. Takafuji asks to explain what this means. The princess explains that the queen can banish a useless hero. Inori asks why his detection isn't considered useful. Arya agrees that he is being treated unfairly, but he is still lazy. The blessing is given to the chosen ones, but he does not want to work on himself at all. Inori recalls sleeping during lectures in recent weeks, but at night he worked hard and became stronger. He tells the princess that he is doing everything in his power. But he is far from the three heroes and he has no talent. Arya says grimly that the barrier protects this training room from the outside world, and here he will be able to train as he wants. When he asks about opening the door, the princess kicks him in the back. Surprised, Inori hits his head against the wall. He turns to Arya, not understanding why she is so angry. The girl says in a muffled voice that he knows nothing about the outside world. If he is thrown out of the castle, the first demon he meets will tear him to shreds. Even if he is worse than other heroes, he needs to work and not give up. Inori realizes that Arya truly cares for him. The girl screams that he can change, but only through hard work. The protagonist suddenly starts laughing. To her silent question, he calls Arya a really good girl. Inori says he didn't expect such passion from her. The embarrassed girl asks him not to play on her nerves. The young man declares that he loves life and does not intend to die. In this way, he really is like her. The princess suddenly feels as if he has enormous power. Inori is confident that he will be exiled, but he can deal with it. During the lecture, he thinks that he does not intend to leave until he has gathered more information about the world. In the training yard, he is working with the dagger again. The protagonist thinks that he needs to somehow prove the value of his detection. However, field training in real dungeons is not planned yet. At the end of the training, he turns to Egiana for help. Having received him in her office, the girl says that it will be difficult. Inori asks her to understand that his skill is not suitable for combat. Egiana agrees with his words. The head of the Knights states that he does not underestimate him at all. Suddenly, she invites him to join the Order of Knights. The girl explains that his powers will be indispensable in exploring dungeons and on the battlefield. Now she cannot influence his position in the palace. But if he stops being a hero and becomes a soldier, he will be under her complete control. And then he will avoid exile and will be able to decide his own destiny. Inori thinks that knights have too many responsibilities. He asks to give him time to think about her proposal. Egiana understands him and tells him to come to her when he has nowhere to go. The protagonist asks if she means exile. The girl looks thoughtfully out the window at the kingdom's flag. She replies that this option is also possible. A few days later, Inori is sitting in on the lecture again. He is interested in the news about the arrival of heroes from a neighboring country. Arya confirms that the official meeting will take place tomorrow. The second princess will be there too, so there are no lectures tomorrow. But Inori wasn't invited and he knows exactly the reason. Takafuji understands perfectly well why they are treating him this way. The next day, a delegation from a neighboring country arrives. A ceremonial military parade is held on the streets of the capital. Inori sits in the room and wonders about the financial crisis. He complains that with such expenses, he did not have enough space for an invitation. But the queen will really have a hard time explaining why she has 4 heroes instead of the standard 3. Delegates may become interested in an extra hero and then problems will begin. But still, Inori doesn't like to stand aside while others are having fun. He activates the all-seeing eye and uses clairvoyance. Using the skill, the guy directs his gaze towards the banquet hall. In the center of the banquet, he sees both princesses. Inori notices that his lecturer is dressed up nicely today, but she continues to smile like an indifferent doll. He sees many delicious dishes on the tables and envies those present. He remembers Nala's explanations under hypnosis. The maid said that such a greeting is one of the reasons for the economic crisis. The queen is very fond of maintaining the image of her wealth and does not listen to the king's fears about bankruptcy. Inori notices those same heroes from the neighboring country at the banquet. A blonde boy is talking to Ryuta and his friends. The second hero turned out to be a young girl with dark hair. And the third one was an unkempt young man with a gloomy look. But the blonde one stands out separately, looking little like a Japanese. Statistics show that his name is Seigi. The blonde points his finger at Ryuto and says something. Inori tries to read lips using her right eye. The blonde demands that Takafuji Inori be brought to him. An angry Seigi wants to challenge him to a duel immediately. After the banquet, Arya introduces the hero Inori to the blonde. Ryuto, Tamaki, and Aoi also came to his room, and his friends followed the blonde man. Takafuji greets the guests with a lazy look. Seigi immediately challenges him to a duel. The second princess looks at the strange guest in surprise. Inori's friends are also surprised by this statement. The protagonist asks why he wants to duel him. Seigi passionately declares that she wants to prove to the goddess that Inori doesn't deserve her. The vampire doesn't understand what he's talking about, but the blonde demands that he not play dumb. He is sure that Inori was also in that white divine plane. It was there that Seigi met the beautiful goddess. At first sight, he fell in love with her divine face and warm gaze. Inori doesn't understand how this relates to the duel. The blonde man happily tells that he proposed marriage to the goddess, but she said she would think about it if he defeated Takafuji Inori. Now Inori understands what the matter is. The goddess did not want to refuse him directly and shifted the blame to Inori. The protagonist mentally promises to hit her the next time they meet. Ryuto and Tamaki don't understand what goddess and white space they are talking about. Seigi's comrades don't know anything about this either. Inori realizes that the other heroes could have been summoned differently. Tired of the obsessive blonde, he decides to end it. Takafuji says he accepts his challenge. A satisfied Seigi lets him go, already anticipating a heated battle. Suddenly, Inori asks him what kind of duel they will have. In response to the blonde's question, the young man explains that he has the skill of a scout and the body of an ordinary person, so a duel is not suitable. Ryuto and the girls are pleased with how skillfully he gets out of a dangerous situation. Inori says that if Seigi likes to bully the weak, then of course they can have a normal duel. The irritated blonde declares that he agrees to any conditions. Everyone present was shocked by his quick agreement. Inori tells about a dungeon for training knights where many different monsters live. He offers victory in a duel to the one who defeats the first floor boss first. Seigi accepts his offer, confident in his skills. Ryuto quietly asks Inori how he plans to defeat the boss. But the vampire replies that there is nothing to worry about and he has an idea. Before the blonde left, they agreed to have a duel tomorrow. After the duel in the dungeon, Inori appears before the queen. She asks him with displeasure how to understand all this. How can he explain his shameful defeat on the battlefield he chose? Takafuji recalls that Seigi was indeed very strong. He quickly broke through the monsters and found the floor boss. The blonde's sword skills were far superior to Ryuto's. He easily defeated the boss without receiving any injuries himself. And Inori, in turn, didn't even try to fight. Using detection, he snuck past the monsters and the boss. So Inori really did suffer a crushing defeat. The queen says she previously turned a blind eye to his laziness and incompetence. After all, the king and the head of the knights vouched for his untapped potential. But after such damage to the country's reputation, she will no longer tolerate him. The queen announces that Inori is banished from the kingdom. Arya and Egiana look at the young exile with regret. But the young man smiles weakly, prepared for such an outcome. He states that he has an objection to the queen's decision. Inori asks what the damage to the country's reputation is. The queen replies that it was because of defeat in a duel. After all, now neighboring countries know about his shameful defeat. Inori says that he did indeed lose, but only his personal dignity was at stake in the duel. The queen demands a detailed explanation from him. The young man explains the reasons for the duel and Seiga's desire to prove himself to the goddess. They agreed among themselves that the duel would not be known to the public or other countries. And in general, Inori was not even presented as a hero to the people, so he is considered a common man. Therefore, his defeat is clearly not capable of disgracing the kingdom. According to the vampire, the whole duel was a simple farce. But this does not mean that he simply hid and sat with his hands folded. The guards bring into the hall 2 large sacks that he brought from the dungeon. The bags are filled to the brim with gold coins and precious stones. The queen and the first princess look in shock at the gold that has fallen out of the bags. Inori says that while the blonde was cleaning the dungeon, he was able to take the treasures from the first floor. The queen looks at the gold coin with a smile. Inori remarks that all of this was only possible thanks to his detection. He had originally planned this so that they could see the value of his skill. Arya looks at the guy in surprise, easily figuring out his plan. Having received the queen's recognition, he waits for sunset and goes hunting. In the forest, he begins to kill demons and absorb their blood to level up. With the help of dark magic, he quickly moves into the shadows without wasting time on long searches. But he was already quite tired of eating demonic birds. Suddenly, he feels a detection response, but he can't figure out what it is. The protagonist activates the all-seeing eye and its power to dissolve illusions. Ahead, he notices a large scarlet barrier, hiding the area from prying eyes. Detection failed to recognize the illusion of this world, but the magic eye easily dealt with it. Inside the barrier, Inori notices creatures with glowing eyes. He goes inside, ready to flee in case of serious danger. Magical wolves immediately sense the intrusion of a stranger. Covered in blood, Inori fearlessly steps inside the barrier. He immediately senses the approach of danger. A group of white wolves runs straight towards him, growling. He notes that this is his first fight with a pack of monsters. Inori activates the black threads and attacks the wolves. In a few seconds, he kills all the monsters, although he himself gets a scratch on his face. The tied wolves lie motionless, drained of all their blood. Inori notes that if he continues to find such powerful enemies, he can forget about the birds. He continues to explore the area beyond the barrier and finds something interesting. A tall tree located on a small island in the middle of a pond. Inori notices that it is too quiet around. In his experience with video games, it's at moments like these that the boss appears. And indeed, a huge wolf attacks him from behind. The vampire doesn't have time to react, and the monster tears off his right arm. Then the wolf hits him with his paw with great force, sending him flying. Inori flies tens of meters away and screams in pain. Having recovered from the initial shock, he looks at the boss. His enemy turned out to be Fenrir, a wolf-like magical beast. The protagonist notes that in front of him is a magical beast, not a demon, and let him be able to tear off his arm with his strength and speed. But this wolf can only be called a mini-boss for now, and the demons should be even stronger. Inori thinks to hide in the shadows, but then the beast will be waiting for him and will not let him leave. Fenrir doesn't give him time to think and rushes at the enemy at great speed. It opens its giant mouth, preparing to swallow the stranger whole. At the last moment, Inori manages to dodge the blow. He was helped in this by demonic wings, which gave him the ability to fly. He got them in the third world when he became a vampire. Now they saved him, but only thanks to the element of surprise. Fenrir asks him why he went inside the barrier. Inori isn't surprised, because a magical beast boss should really be able to talk. The vampire brazenly replies that he is simply lost. Fenrir doubts that it is possible to get lost and accidentally pass through an illusion. Inori replies that he saw an illusion and decided to check what was inside. The wolf calls him an intruder who killed his relatives and promises revenge. Inori ponders his words and tries to stall for time. He asks if this place is really so important for the wolf. Fenrir promises that he will have plenty of time to think about this after he dies. The wolf explains that on this land they made a pact with a witch. That is why they protect this place, fulfilling their duty to that great sorceress. And they always root out curious demons like Inori. The wolf advises not to resist, and there will be almost no pain, unlike his hand. Fenrir falls silent, noticing that the vampire has already grown a new arm thanks to supernatural regeneration. The wolf growls that the guy is truly unusual, but he won't leave here alive. With the help of his right eye, Inori manages to see the attack. He quickly flies to the side, trying to increase the distance. So far, he hasn't been able to fly higher and can only hover above the trees. Fenrir instantly climbs up the rock, not giving the guy a chance to catch his breath. Dozens of sharp blue projectiles strike the vampire, biting into his flesh. They are sharp enough to pierce through centuries-old trees, pushing back the surprised Inori. Fenrir demonstrates that he can turn his fur into projectiles and throw them at a target. The wounded Inori continues to retreat into the forest, trying to pull the wool needles out of himself. But the wolf approaches at great speed and opens its mouth to attack. The vampire notes that the hypnosis of the left eye also does not work on such a strong enemy. Ahead, he sees a waterfall over which he will not have time to fly. Fenrir notices that the vampire is flying close to the ground and begins his ranged attack again. Blue needles strike the young man, forcing him to stop. His wings are badly damaged, and now he can't fly. But Inori is ready to attack and activates his dark magic skill. Wooden stakes are torn out of the ground and fly towards the wolf. Fenrir manages to dodge and jump back. The vampire notes that he prepared them in advance, just in case of a difficult battle. But victory is still far away, and the enemy is truly very strong. The huge wolf growls angrily, ready to fight until its last breath. Fenrir slowly approaches, his eyes scanning for other traps. Inori thinks that it would be a good idea to teleport away now, but the left eye retains the stamp of hypnosis. To change the skill, you need to look at the teleportation circle with your left eye. You need to buy time and distract the enemy to change the effect and escape. Inori draws daggers from the shadows for a long-range attack. With the power of dark magic, he begins to throw knives at great speed. But the blades simply bounce off the white wolf's tough hide. The main character barely manages to dodge another blow. Takafuji continues to throw dark daggers at the growling boss. Fenrir mocks his weak attacks, taking no damage. Inori notes that there is no need to try to protect all parts of the body. Only the heart and legs are needed for a vampire to live and run. With a quick movement, the white wolf goes behind Inori's back. The vampire takes out a black thread from the shadow vault. He quickly ties her to nearby trees for support. The thread wraps around Fenrir, forcing him to stop. The wolf roars menacingly, trying to escape from the bonds. In an instant, the supporting trees break under its unstoppable onslaught. Fenrir breaks the black threads, mocking Inori again. The vampire is pleasantly surprised by the strength of his enemy. Now he has only one trick left to survive. He continues to avoid the wool games and run through the forest. With a series of quick leaps, he rises high above the trees. The wolf growls that there is no point in running through the sky again. The boss fires at a flying Inori, who is forced to take the hit. The vampire activates the Eye of Formations to maintain the new circle. During the fight, he created many threads, entangling them around the nearby trees. So he created a large teleport seal that can be seen when viewed from above. Inori overwrites the saved circle in the formation's eye, and immediately creates a summoning circle for instant movement. The white wolf quickly realizes that the vampire wants to escape. Inori really did think about running away at first, but now he decided to move behind the enemy. With 2 daggers in his hands, he attacks, taking advantage of the element of surprise. The protagonist aims for the eyes, mindful of the wolf's super strong fur. With precise blows, he gouges out both of Fenrir's eyes. The magical beast roars loudly, having lost its sight. Inori says he didn't want to leave without the final blow. The blinded white wolf growls furiously and breaks everything around. Now it's much easier to dodge his attacks. A blind enemy does not see it and does not know where to direct his blows. The vampire suddenly realizes that Fenrir has stopped and turned his face straight towards him. The magical beast says that it can smell it. With a quick leap, he closes the distance for a deadly bite. Inori dodges and decides it's time to retreat. He activates the summoning circle and moves back to the castle. Fenrir growls and promises to definitely kill him the next time they meet. A wounded Inori is healing in his room. As he pulls the needles out of his body, he thinks he will soon be able to take revenge. The next day, the main character began to train more actively. First of all, he got busy with his equipment. Using shadow movement, he made his way into the armory. And he took from there several excellent swords and daggers. He also managed to take Fenrir's fur, which remained in his body in the form of needles. According to the system's description, the wool hardens under the influence of magic. Inori takes a few strands of hair to check, and they really do turn into hard needles from his dark magic. This explains the durability of the wolf, which did not receive damage from daggers. The protagonist decides to create a weapon from the fur of a magical beast. The wool is transformed into a super strong black thread. The system gives it the name Gleipnir, like the magic chain from Scandinavian myths. The thread crystallizes when exposed to magic if it is not strong enough to break it. Inori notices the irony, because in the myths it was Gleipnir that defeated the wolf Fenrir. Next, he decides to try making clothes from these threads. He now has black gloves that harden under the influence of magic. After a couple of experiments, the vampire was able to draw a hypnosis circle on the glove, which appeared when it hardened. Inori then creates black boots for herself, and a nice suit with a red shirt and tie. Having updated his wardrobe, he received magical armor to protect him from strong blows. It's time to return to the forest and take revenge on the white wolf. In the middle of the forest on the outskirts of the capital, the light of a magical portal appears. White wolf Fenrir feels a surge of energy near him. Takafuji Inori emerges from the summoning circle wearing new armor and greets the magical beast. The vampire says sarcastically that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Fenrir roars in rage, surprised that the demon has returned after its last defeat. Inori mockingly notes that the blind wolf now has really beautiful eyes. The beast roars and begins to attack, delivering a powerful blow with its clawed paw. The protagonist is surprised by the accuracy of his blows, which is uncharacteristic for a blind monster. Fenrir promises this time not to let go of the spawn of evil that has invaded his land for the second time. Inori is surprised that the fact of his intrusion angers the wolf more than the loss of his sight. The boy mentally praises his opponent and his unwavering loyalty to the defense of this place. The magical beast rushes forward again, seeking to strike the enemy. The vampire opens the shadow vault and summons the slain wolves, who become his ghouls. Fenrir stops and tries to understand where the new enemies came from. He smells familiar scents and feels the fangs of his former comrades on his skin. Inori is sure that the magical beast itself understands who is attacking it now. His former kin, whom he swore to protect, but now they have been turned into mindless ghouls. The white wolf growls furiously and asks what the vampire did to them. Inori sarcastically says that he simply killed them and turned them into obedient dogs. With one swift movement, Fenrir scatters the dead wolves. Inori manages to dodge the next blow, but the enemy hits his new armor. The vampire replies that clothing does not completely block damage, but greatly reduces it. Fenrir lands a direct paw strike on Inori's side, but it doesn't penetrate his magical jacket. The magical beast continues to deal crushing blows, not giving the demon a chance to catch his breath. Ghouls run through the trees towards Fenrir, trying to distract him. After a series of attacks, Takafuji is thrown against a tree, but this time all of his limbs are intact. Fenrir roars that now he will avenge his brothers and rushes at Inori. The vampire smirks and activates Move via the yellow summoning circle. He manages to teleport at the last moment before Fenrir's fatal bite. The white wolf thinks that his enemy has again fled further from the forest. But Inori appears in the air a few meters away from the magical beast. Fenrir pushes off the ground and leaps at the enemy, hoping to grab them with a powerful bite. The vampire remains in place and says that this time he is definitely not going to run away. In flight, the white wolf notices thin threads, almost invisible in the darkness of the night sky. Fenrir hopes to break them like last time, but these threads turn out to be much stronger. To increase their strength, Inori also tied them to nearby trees and placed ghouls there to guard them. The protagonist stands silently on one of the threads, activating both magic eyes. Fenrir falls to the ground and tries to understand why the vampire threads have become so strong. Inori tells him that these threads are made from the yarn of his own fur, which the wolf lost in the last battle. The vampire takes control of Gleipnir with dark magic, preparing for the final attack. Super strong threads entangle the stunned wolf from all sides. A moment later, a growling Fenrir finds himself pinned to the ground, unable to move. The wolf tries with all his might to break free, but the threads of Gleipnir prove too strong to break. Inori notes that the beast didn't notice the threads in the sky, precisely because they were made of its fur. The vampire deliberately provoked the enemy from the very beginning of the fight. He tried not to dodge and take the wolf's blows so that he would not notice the trap in the sky. And then, at the right moment, Inori moved to the side, leaving the enemy trapped in the web. The protagonist wishes the wolf good luck in the afterlife. Takafuji pulls Gleipnir, tightening the grip of the threads around the white wolf's neck. Fenrir looks at his fallen comrades and says that the vampire really tried for the victory. But now his oath to the witch has come to an end, and he is free from his eternal debt. Under the light of the full moon, Inori ends the life of the magical beast. The vampire demon drinks the blood of a defeated enemy, wanting to gain new strength. For absorbing the blood of such a strong opponent, he immediately gains 5 levels. He also gains several skills, including the King's Vessel skill. Inori tries to figure out what this skill is and suddenly hears someone's voice. The dead wolves gain the ability to speak and addressed him. The protagonist realizes that this is how the King's Vessel skill works. It allows him to talk to his subjects. The wolf familiar asks Inori to make the dead Fenrir a ghoul. The dead wolves pay their respects to their former leader, who protected the forest from any threats for so long. And for many years, he was the protector of their wolf pack, and now he can remain one even after death. Inori promises them to try to revive him. The main character doesn't see anything wrong with this because strong soldiers are always needed. He notices that he is very tired from the battle and wants to rest. Sometime later, he comes to the room of the hero Shinzaki Ryuto for dinner. He wants to discuss with his friends the complicated relationship between the two princesses. Tamaki says that most likely the second princess is just too unsociable. Aoi agrees with her friend and wonders why the princesses don't get along. Inori sadly pokes a fork into a juicy steak, generously seasoned with garlic spices. Ryuto states that Inori can help them reconcile the princesses. The surprised protagonist asks what he has to do with it. He points to Tamaki and Aoi, claiming that the girls would clearly be better able to understand the princess's feelings. Ryuto notices that Inori is closest to the second princess, who teaches him theory. So now he needs to talk to the first princess and discuss a plan for reconciliation. When Inori asks about the first princess's arrogance, Ryuto smiles and replies that he has already persuaded her to meet. After all, the first princess is crazy about Shinzaki Ryuto, as he himself brazenly states. Tamaki and Aoi react gloomily to this statement, condemning their friend for his pride. Ryuto offers Inori a 7-day break from lectures as a reward, to which he immediately agrees. After some time, the main character knocks on the door of the first princess's room. Amanda allows him to enter and pay homage to Her Majesty. Inori enters the room, thinking to herself that there is no turning back. He quickly examines the numerous luxury items in the princess's chambers. The guy notices that the room looks luxurious, but is completely lacking in uniformity of style. Amanda thinks he is speechless at her wealth and smirks contentedly. Inori asks if the princess really likes the bird-shaped candlestick. The girl replies that these are expensive gifts from her mother and guests from all over the world. Not wanting to argue with her, Inori asks Amanda about her relationship with the second princess. The girl looks away, embarrassed, and says that it doesn't bother her. An irritated Inori thinks that this tsundere will be really difficult. Amanda remembers Ryuto's words, which convinced her that Inori wanted to make peace between them. The princess nervously tugged at her hair and said that she didn't really want to make peace with her. Takafuji asks if she wants to make peace with her sister or not. Amanda loudly declares that it is none of his business, tugging at her hair even harder. Inori decides to play his trump card since the conversation is already not going well. He says that the reconciliation was Ryuto's idea, but since she doesn't want it, then so be it. Ryuto will probably be upset when he finds out that nothing worked out. Amanda demands that he not leave and promises that she will explain everything now. The first princess begins her story about her sister. Inori sits down on a chair and prepares to listen. Amanda says she and her sister used to be much closer. As children, the girls spent all their time together and were happy. Arya was always smart and often played with her little sister, helping her master magic. Little Amanda followed her older sister, who became her best friend everywhere. But at some point, they began to drift apart. And when Amanda turned 7, the first princess passed to her. She learned that Arya was not her mother's daughter, and that they only had the same father. Thus ended their childhood friendship, and the first princess remained alone from then on. Amanda finishes her story about the old days. Inori continues to listen to the princess in silence. Amanda says she had to study hard to become queen one day. But at one point, she realized that her sister had always been the best teacher and friend for her. Amanda began to dream that they could be close again like before. But the adults around her would not allow her to get close to the second princess. At this point, Amanda ends her explanation, turning to face the wall. Inori understands that Amanda's arrogance and brazen behavior comes from her upbringing. Even the lack of a uniform style in the room shows that it has no taste of its own. Her entire personality was created by others who wanted to create the ideal future queen. Now all she can do is cling to her princess status to avoid losing herself completely. Confused, Amanda demands that he say something. Inori suggests that arrogance may, after all, be an innate quality. He suggests that the princess simply approach her sister and start a conversation. Amanda replies that she cannot do this, because her retinue and servants will not approve of this. Inori asks why she cares so much about the servants' opinions when she's about to become queen. After all, it is the first princess who should impose her opinion on her retinue and not the other way around. Amanda hesitates, not wanting to cause problems for Arya. Takafuji states that the second princess is stronger than she appears. Amanda thinks about his words. Embarrassed again, she proudly declares that she can handle it herself since he can't help. Inori says goodbye to her and leaves the room. After some time, he recounts the details of the conversation to the servant Nale. The maid promises to convey everything to the second princess, whom she personally serves. Inori notices that the maid is clearly not thrilled with his idea of reconciliation. The next day, he wakes up well-rested after the fight with Fenrir. Naala greets him and wants to convey a message from Arya. Takafuji yawns with his fanged mouth and asks what she wants. Naala says that their lesson today will be special. Inori feels that there is something bad hidden behind these words. A few hours later, he finds himself on a busy street in the capital. The protagonist accompanies Arya and Nala on a walk around the city. The vampire asks what he will learn in the middle of the street. The princess states that he needs to find out about trade turnover and the mood of the people. So today, he will go shopping with them. Arya claims that this way he will be able to learn more about the tastes of the upper class. First, she wants to look at the selection of costume jewelry. Inori remembers her words that she never bought anything for herself. Arya blushes as she continues to look at the jewelry on display. She asks Inori's opinion about jewelry. He lazily replies that any decoration will suit her. Arya sheepishly says that she is not buying them for herself. Nyala whispers in his ear that it is a birthday present for the first princess. This morning, the maid told Arya about yesterday's meeting with Amanda. The second princess listened attentively and decided to go get the gift. Inori still doesn't understand why he should help with the choice. Arya notices that the young man was in his sister's chambers yesterday and saw what she had there. Takafuji replies that Amanda is used to receiving gifts and is unlikely to be surprised by anything. Arya asks what she should do then. Inori says that the one who gives is more important than the gift itself, and any gift from a sister will be the best by default. Naala thanks Inori for his kind words, but he just wants to return to the castle. Arya agrees with the guy and continues choosing a gift. She is talking to the saleswoman, trying to choose the best piece of jewelry. Naala is glad that she decided to convey Inori's words to her mistress yesterday. The second princess buys a piece of jewelry in a green box. Naala says she is happy to see Arya's genuine smile again. Inori silently looks at the maid and remembers how many times he hypnotized her. Arya returns to them and suggests going to lunch. 5 days later, the banquet for the first princess's birthday begins. Inori also received an invitation and now stands alone on the sidelines. He notices that the banquet is indeed luxurious, and that there are plenty of pompous idiots around. The vampire looks gloomily at the nobles who came to congratulate the first princess. A joyful Amanda with a crown on her head accepts congratulations. The king and queen look at their beloved daughter with affection. Ryuto also comes up to congratulate Amanda, who immediately blushes at the sight of the hero. The girl thanks him for his congratulations and smiles happily. Inori looks darkly at the shamelessly flirting couple. In another part of the room, he notices something interesting. There, the head of the knights, Egiana Ize, is talking to a rich-looking man. Using his right all-seeing eye, the vampire recognizes him as Prime Minister Bichray. Takafuji notes that he hasn't seen him in the castle before. Having lost interest in him, Inori looks around in search of the second princess. He notices Arya hiding behind a column. An embarrassed girl looks at her sister from afar with a gift in her hand. Amanda continues to exchange pleasantries with Ryuto. Inori decides to help Arya, remembering the promise of a 7-day vacation. Arya notices him and asks how she can get her sister's attention. The vampire demon reminds his mentor of how she once kicked him in the training room. He advises her to be more confident and forcefully pushes the girl towards her sister. Amanda and Ryuto notice the second princess approaching. Arya stops a step away from her younger sister and immediately blushes. The nobles around fall silent and watch the unfolding scene. Inori pretends that none of this concerns him. Confused, Amanda looks silently at the second princess. Arya also can't say a word, but she holds the box with the gift tightly behind her back. The nobles begin to whisper actively. Inori is unhappy that the aristocrats are making a fuss over a simple family scene. He mentally encourages Arya and demands that she give him the gift. The second princess gathers up the last of her courage and congratulates her sister on her birthday. She holds out a box with a gift. Arya shyly blurts out that she chose the jewelry herself. A flushed Amanda reaches out to the box. She quickly examines its contents. The first princess asks her sister to help her braid them right now. Seeing Arya's hesitation, she hesitantly repeats the request. The second princess helps her braid her hair using precious hairpins from the jewelry store. The gold hairpins with red stones complement Amanda's crown perfectly. The first princess thanks her sister for the gift. Ryuto and her friends loudly applaud their family reunion. The nobles gradually join in the applause. Amanda shyly asks for another gift. She asks Arya to call her sister from now on, not first princess. Arya is shocked by such a sudden request. Childhood memories of the time they spent together flash before her eyes. With tears in her eyes, the second princess happily agrees. Amanda quickly recovers from her embarrassment and rushes to her sister. The princesses hug happily, wiping away each other's tears. The girls are happy that they can finally be best friends again. Inori notes that the job is done and looks around the room. He is surprised to see the king and queen crying, happy for Amanda. Ryuto approaches him and thanks him for helping him with the reconciliation. Inori replies that she is counting on a vacation as a reward. Ryuto promises that he will definitely help with this. The hero is glad that the sisters have made peace and will now be together again. Ryuto is pleased with what happened, looking at the princesses from afar. Inori thinks that he is being too pompous and kind. Takafuji decides to go out for some fresh air, leaving Ryuto. He watches the sunset approach when Arya calls out to him. She asks permission to speak to him alone. The young man replies that there is no one around anyway. Arya realizes that with his detection, he always knows if someone is eavesdropping on their conversations. Inori tells Arya that she should listen to her feelings more often. Meanwhile, at the banquet, someone is shedding blood. The nobles look on in shock at the horror that is unfolding. Inori thinks that now Arya can no longer be called an emotionless doll. Suddenly, they hear loud screams from the banquet hall. Arya rushes forward, wanting to know what's going on. Inori stops her at the entrance, moving her away from the possible threat. In the hall, a shocked Arya sees a terrible picture. The queen's severed head falls to the floor. Prime Minister Bitre just beheaded the royal couple. He loudly demands that the nobles shut up, calling them sellouts. Surrounded by motionless guards, he declares that the aristocrats did not even try to stop the collapse of their country. The queen spent the treasury on her whims, and the king indulged her lawlessness. Bitre glances at the bodies of the headless monarchs sitting on their thrones. After their death, Bitre declares himself king as the heir to the royal blood, and Egiana will become the new queen. Inori grimly notes that the head of the knights is on the prime minister's side. Amanda kneels before her mother's severed head. After recovering from the shock, she begins to collect magical energy. The princess screams that Bitre has gone mad and prepares to kill him with a powerful spell. The new king stands before the first princess with a drawn blade. Egiana rushes to intercept Amanda and quickly swings her sword. The first princess feels a sharp pain and looks down. Her severed hand falls to the floor. Amanda screams loudly in pain, falling to her knees and losing control of her magical power. Ryuto, Tamaki, and Aoi slowly recover from the initial shock. Egiana gloomily advises Ryuto not to move. The leader of the knights declares that if the heroes decide to attack, the same fate awaits them. Bitre addresses the nobles who are the heirs of the great witch of the past. He screams that they blindly followed the whims of the dead queen, and they even allowed her to call upon heroes during such a difficult time for the country. The aristocrats committed a sin, and now they can only wash it away by death. With a dark glint in his eyes, Egiana stands behind Amanda, and with a deft blow, he cuts off her head. Arya watches in horror as her entire family dies. Inori holds her in place and thinks that the situation cannot get any worse. Arya tries to scream, but Takafuji shuts her mouth. He tells her to keep quiet, otherwise she will be noticed and killed too. Inori didn't expect that a coup d'etat would suddenly start here, and the participation of Egiana makes the conspirators a truly unstoppable force. Bitre calls on the guards to punish the greedy nobles and send them to the next world. The aristocrats scream in fear and run in different directions. The soldiers begin to kill the fugitives throughout the hall. All the guards at the banquet participate in the massacre, quickly cutting down the assembled nobles. Bitre continues his monologue, accusing the courtiers of usurpation, bribery, and corruption. He again states that they all deserve to die here. Inori quietly tells Arya to calm down and not to twitch. She was left with two choices: to die here in vain or to escape and survive. Ryuto kneels next to Amanda's body. He shouts loudly that no one deserves such a death. Bitre turns to the young hero, and he repeats that all the aristocrats here deserve to die. Their sin is neglect of their country, to which they have sworn allegiance. Ryuto shouts that this is no reason to kill them. The former prime minister looks closely at the hero. He recalls scenes of poverty in the impoverished areas of the capital and says that the hero did not see real life in the kingdom. Not wanting to argue with the hero any longer, the king orders Egiana to seize the trio. The head of the knights draws his sword and advises Ryuto not to resist. The hero activates the blessing of beyond limits. Creating a sword from light energy, he strikes at Egiana. The head of the knights blocks the blow with a thick magical shield on his blade. The girl says his strength and speed are impressive. Ryuto uses his last bit of strength to deliver a few more blows, but all his attacks are blocked by the chief's sword. Egiana easily parries each attack without moving from her position. Ryuto's energy strikes scatter across the banquet hall. Meanwhile, Aoi maintains a barrier to protect herself and Tamaki from the soldiers. Tamaki wants to support Ryuto in the fight against Egiana, but Aoi screams that she can't hold the barrier alone. Egiana looks at Shinzaki Ryuto impartially. The hero is tired from his first serious battle, but he does not intend to give up. Egiana remarks that since Tamaki and Aoi entered the fight, they will now be punished as well. Ryuto stands on the defensive, using the last of his strength to fight off the attacks of his former mentor. Egiana says that even if the fight continues until the morning, he still won't win. The leader of the knights advises him to surrender to his comrades. And then the soldiers will take up the murder of the second princess. The ever-calm Inori looks at the crying Arya. He notes that if she continues to grieve, then she will die here. The vampire asks if she's ready to surrender again, as she did in the past. Arya recalls how she gave up her friendship with her sister because of her own weakness. The realization dawns on her that her old life can no longer be returned. The second princess stands up and declares that she will not give up and will continue to live. And until her death, no one will be an authority figure for her. Inori is surprised by such a sudden change in mood. He smirks and suggests running away from here. Having thrown aside formalities, the guy now simply calls her Arya. The former princess does not answer and silently follows Inori. Ryuto continues to fight Egiana. With her next blow, she breaks his lightsaber. The head of the knights says that this is the end. With a powerful kick, she sends him flying. Tamaki hears the sound of a falling body and looks towards his friend. Egiana stands gloomily in the middle of the banquet hall with a sword in her hand. At her feet lies Ryuto, unconscious from the final blow to the chest. Tamaki thinks that he needs to take him immediately and run. Egiana's next attack breaks through Aoi's barrier. Left without a shield, the girls frantically think about what to do next. Egiana orders the guards to seize them. The soldiers immediately rush to carry out the order. They manage to knock the girls to the floor before they can use magic again. The unconscious Ryuto continues to lie motionless. Egiana orders the guards to take all three to the dungeon and lock them there. The head of the knights looks gloomily at the captured heroes, and he wonders if she was too harsh with Ryuto. Deciding not to think about it, she turns her attention to searching for the second princess. Egiana is confident that even with his reconnaissance skills, Inori won't be able to get her out of the castle alone. Takafuji leads the second princess through the corridors, scanning the nearby rooms. The girl follows him without further ado, still recovering from the shock of her family's death. They run quietly past the patrols that fill the castle corridors. Arya thinks that Inori has truly mastered the technique of stealth infiltration. The protagonist suddenly asks her if she can use magic. He says that in 10 seconds, 3 guards will appear around this corner. He asks the girl to somehow deal with them using magic. The second princess suggests simply running away. Inori replies that the soldiers have blocked the only passage and it is impossible to go further. Gathering her strength, Arya gathers energy for the spell. Inori notices that there are 3 seconds left before the guards arrive. Shadows of approaching soldiers appear from around the corner. Arya activates the airhole spell. Magical bubbles, deprived of oxygen, appear around the guards' heads. A few seconds later, all 3 fall unconscious from suffocation. Inori remarks that she really is strong, having taken out 3 people with 1 blow. Arya replies that she was lucky with the surprise attack. She asks how Inori is feeling, as he is tired after a long run. The young man says that it is difficult for him to run like this, but he needs to move on. There are no guards ahead, so they will be able to pass unnoticed. Inori thinks that they can still deal with ordinary soldiers, but Arya won't be able to compete with the head of the knights, Egiana, and he himself will not regain his powers until the sun sets. The protagonist suggests hiding in an empty room and discussing the next escape plan. Arya doesn't understand how the staff room can be empty. They notice traces of blood on the threshold. Opening the door, another terrible sight appears before their eyes. All the maids were killed by soldiers during the coup. Inori realizes that the maids were killed because of their loyalty to the authorities. Arya kneels before the corpse of her servant Nala. The murdered maid, her eyes glassy, lies in a pool of her own blood. The second princess hugs her friend and cries. Inori looks at this scene with impartiality. He remembers his shopping trip with Nala, who was smiling happily just 5 days ago. The vampire demon feels irritated that another person he knew was killed in this massacre. Arya closes the maid's eyes and wipes away her tears. Pulling herself together, she tells Inori that she is ready to continue on her way. Takafuji asks where they should run next. Meanwhile, Ryuto, Tamaki, and Aoi are sitting in a prison cell. Egiana explains that the royal dungeon is protected by a magical seal to keep out especially dangerous criminals. The head advises them to sit quietly and not move. Tamaki asks if the cage is impenetrable, then why are there shackles? Ryuto replies that an alliance of heroes from other countries will soon respond to the coup that has occurred. The imprisoned heroes are needed as hostages, and the shackles are to prevent them from killing themselves. Egiana confirms his words, noting that despite his rage, he keeps a clear head. Ryuto is truly seething with anger over Amanda's death. The hero looks at Egiana with hatred, promising with his gaze to kill her one day. Aoi and Tamaki are frightened by their friend's raging aura. Ryuto ignores them and continues to glare at the head of the knights. Egiana thinks she has seen those eyes before. She recalls her youth during the years of the bloody war. He remembers all his fallen comrades and ordinary citizens of his country. At that time, she had the same eyes, filled with hatred from her own powerlessness. Egiana meets the eyes of an enraged Ryuto. The hero continues to be angry, despising himself for his weakness. The night girl advises him to remember these feelings, but not to forget to think clearly. After all, if he had simply given in at the banquet as she suggested to him, then Egiana could have let Aoi and Tamaki go. The leader of the knights leaves the dungeon, leaving the soldiers on guard. The heroine girls ponder their future gloomily. Ryuto is angry at Egiana for continuing to act like his mentor. From the guards, the head of the knights learns that Inori and Arya have not yet been captured. Egiana tells the guards that she will join the search herself as soon as she changes into her armor. Meanwhile, Arya explains her escape plan. She talks about a secret door in the castle that leads to the underground sewers. Through the tunnels, they will be able to quickly get out of the castle. Then all they have to do is run through the side gate and disappear into the forest. Inori asks who else knows about this secret door. Arya replies that only members of the royal family should know about her, but right now she is not sure of anything. The protagonist says that there is no choice anyway and suggests leaving. The second princess takes a last look at the body of her maid. Naala lies peacefully on the floor, washed clean of blood as a final tribute to her former owner. Arya mentally thanks her for the years of friendship and follows Inori. Numerous groups of soldiers continue to patrol the castle. Takafuji notes that the guards are growing in number. He is confident that at this rate they will soon be surrounded. Inori runs to the turn and stops abruptly. From there, a group of 12 soldiers approaches them, with even more coming from behind. And ahead, he senses a trap set by the guards. Inori stops Arya and says that there is an ambush ahead. The path was blocked by elite soldiers. It was not so easy to break through them. And it won't be possible to go back either because of the chase. Arya wonders how they can get to the secret door unnoticed. Inori replies that they won't succeed. Near that door, he senses even more soldiers entrenched in their positions. Arya is shocked into silence, realizing their hopeless situation. Takafuji says that the nobles were probably tortured and forced to reveal the secret passage. The main character understands that only he himself can escape from here. Arya says quietly that she is not going to give up. She won't let herself be killed so easily and is ready to fight to the end. Inori looks at the self-confident princess with curiosity. The vampire smirks, thinking he can rely on her. He claims to sense another country's army approaching the royal castle. The demon lies that there are definitely heroes among the army who are going to save the royal family. Arya excitedly asks when they will arrive. Inori claims that they will have to wait until sunset. You need to hold out for 15 minutes until sunset, and then there will be a chance of survival. Arya agrees with him and understands that she will have to fight alone. Inori thinks she has little chance of standing against a crowd of armed soldiers. He decides to take her to a place where there are the fewest guards. The patrolman notices movement in the corridor and sees a couple running. He shouts loudly that he has found the second princess and sets off in pursuit of them. The guards draw their bows and fire a volley of magic arrows at the fugitives. Arya turns around and activates the magic barrier. The magic shield successfully repels energy arrows. She shouts to Inori that they will definitely be able to survive these 15 minutes. Arrows from the next volley begin to pierce the barrier. Arya manages to dodge at the last moment, avoiding direct hits. Inori demands to turn right into the corridor. They run around the corner while the princess continues to hold the shield. The guard commander orders the soldiers to surround the fugitives from all sides. Inori thinks that the guards are gathering around faster than he expected. Using detection, he senses another group of soldiers ahead on the left. The young man manages to warn Arya about a new ambush. She places a barrier in the corridor, blocking the passage of enemies. The soldiers quickly come to their senses and draw their swords. With a few blows, they break through the barrier and set off in pursuit of the fugitives. Inori notes that despite their pursuers, they have not yet been surrounded. Arya is tired of wasting her magical powers, but continues to run silently. There are only a few minutes left until sunset. They run to a blank wall with a small window. The princess asks where they should run next if there is a dead end here. Inori replies that there are still 3 minutes until sunset, and other routes are already blocked. The guards catch up with the couple, blocking their way back. They fire a volley of magic arrows again. Arya puts up the barrier again, promising Inori that she can protect him. The guard commander orders not to approach them and to continue firing from a safe distance. The soldiers continue to shoot, hoping to wear down the princess. Arya notices that she has almost no strength left to defend herself. She reduces the size of the barrier in an attempt to conserve more energy. The guards launch another hail of magic arrows. The princess tries to create a new shield to replace the broken one. She is too tired, but she is determined to hold on until the end. Strengthening the barrier with life force, the girl repels a new attack. She calls out to Inori and asks him when help will arrive. The guard commander is confident that the next volley will be the last. The princess collapses from exhaustion, but her companion is nowhere to be seen. A trembling Arya turns around slowly. In place of Inori, only a dark substance remained, through which he hid in the shadows. The princess calls her friend, who left her alone. She realizes that he allowed her to distract the soldiers and then ran away. And his words about helping were lies, designed to make her fight. Arya is deeply shocked by Inori's betrayal. The guard commander orders her to be fired upon for the last time. The former princess looks death in the eye as she sees arrows flying. The sun disappears behind the horizon and the dark energy of Takafuji appears. The demon vampire emerges from the shadow, restored to full strength. Arya looks on in shock at the sudden reinforcements. The corridor is filled with thick darkness, blinding the guards. The commander demands to bring a torch to dispel the darkness. Shadow wolves appear in the darkness, led by the dead Fenrir. Inori orders the ghouls to deal with his enemies. Fenrir rushes at the soldiers, carrying out the orders of his new master. He quickly deals with the guards, cutting off their heads with precise blows. The wolf tears off the arms of some enemies, enjoying their suffering. The guard commander hears the screams of his subordinates, but sees nothing in the darkness. He demands a situation report and to group together to defend against the new enemy. The screams in the darkness fade away and a deafening silence reigns in the corridor. The last guard stands next to Arya and tries to understand what happened. He calls out to his commander and comrades, who have suddenly fallen silent in the depths of the dark corridor. Inori appears silently behind the surviving enemy. The vampire quietly tells the guard that his friends will not come. The soldier turns around sharply, sword at the ready. He sees the hero scout Takafuji Inori in front of him and calms down a little, not considering him a threat. The demon asks Fenrir if he is finished with his games. A huge wolf appears behind the last guard. The shadow monster is indignant that the enemies turned out to be too weak. The guard falls to the ground, frightened by Fenrir's menacing appearance. He asks Inori to help him and protect him from this monster. The vampire recalls the actions of the guards at the banquet. Then they killed a lot of people and now he will kill them. The soldier trembles with fear, not understanding that the humble failed hero has become a monster. The protagonist notices that everyone has their own secrets. Fenrir finishes off the last enemy by biting off his head. Arya lies helplessly on the floor in a pool of her own blood. She remains conscious and quietly calls out for Inori. The girl uses the last of her strength to cast a healing spell, keeping herself alive. Inori says it's no use because she's lost too much blood. No healing can pull her out of the tenacious embrace of death. Arya asks if he always had this power. Inori asks not to look at him with such a reproachful look. His strength appears only at sunset. During the day, he is still the same weakling. That's why he told her to hold out until sunset, although he himself could always save himself. The young man watched with pleasure as Arya fought desperately when he gave her hope of salvation. Inori looks at the dying princess emotionlessly. He remembers her eyes, full of faith in her own strength and a better future. And since she continues to fight so stubbornly, you can offer help. Inori declares that she is no longer going to speak politely, and he asks her directly if she is a virgin. He claims that if this is the case, then she will be able to survive. But then she will have to obey him and live as his faithful servant. The demon gives her a choice to die as a human or to live, rejecting everything human. The dying girl gloomily considers his proposal. She doesn't want to lose her dignity as a human being, but images of Amanda and Nayla suddenly appear before her eyes. Arya replies that she is ready to sell her soul to the devil in order to survive. Inori continues to look at her with an indifferent gaze. He smirks and remarks that this is a wonderful answer. He declares that he is truly closer to the devil than to God before sinking his fangs into Arya's neck. The girl feels icy energy flowing into her body. Dark power fills her from head to toe, healing wounds and defiling the soul. Having finished with the appeal, Inori covers the sleeping girl with a cloak. He orders the familiars to deal with the remaining soldiers in the castle, and he tells several ghouls to stay close to Arya and protect her from possible danger. He himself intends to stroll around the castle and have a good time. At the same time, King Bitre sits in the throne room. The guards report to him that the second princess has been cornered. Bitre orders that she not be allowed to leave, as only the complete destruction of the royal family can lead the country to a renaissance. He remembers hunger, poverty, and dying orphans on the city streets. In his youth, he saw them often, but always ignored them. Now everything will be different. They have a long road ahead of them to restore the kingdom. And with the power of Egiana, he will be able to make the country great, as it was always meant to be. Inori appears from behind the throne and holds out a dagger towards Bitre's head. The king feels a sharp pain in his neck as the vampire slits his throat. Inori doesn't lose her composure and genuinely enjoys what's happening. The guards look on in shock at the death of their leader. Egiana senses something strange in the castle corridor and stops. She managed to change into armor and went to look for the fugitives. The girl asks herself where she gets this unpleasant feeling that something terrible is happening nearby. Inori cut off Bitre's head, just as he had previously beheaded the queen and king. The vampire demon raises the enemy leader's head before the soldiers. He announces that the coup plan has failed and asks what they will do now. The guards rush at Inori in a rage, wanting to avenge their commander. The protagonist grins, anticipating a new massacre. The young man summons dozens of daggers from the Shadow Vault. He claims that what is happening is a result of the massacre they committed at the banquet. By declaring him an enemy, all the soldiers and the new government in the kingdom signed their own death warrant. Shadow daggers strike the guards, killing them on the spot. Inori wants to meet real opponents who are ready to fight to the end. The night girl in the corridor hears screams from the throne room. Together with her comrades, she runs there, preparing to defend the king. When there are only a few meters left to the throne room, the sounds from there fade away. Standing in the doorway, the night girls see a terrible sight. The king and the guards are killed, and among the corpses stands Inori, releasing shadow bonds. The demon turns to the newcomers and quickly recognizes them. Before him stands a squad of 4 battle maidens, elite knights who answer directly to Egiana. The night girl asks Takafuji Inori if he really arranged all this. The vampire doesn't want to have another conversation, but he is ready to answer if the knights promise to fight him seriously. The girl knight realizes that before her stands a demon in the guise of a former hero. A red-haired girl named Elfa notices the corpse of her friend in the hall. With tears in her eyes, she rushes at Inori, driven by a sense of revenge. The vampire does not dodge, allowing the blade to pierce his body. Elfa continues to cry, confident that the fight is over. Inori sarcastically asks if he accidentally killed her lover since she was so angry. The next moment, he kills Elf with a dagger thrust into her neck. Her friend doesn't understand how he managed to survive such an injury. She watches in shock as his wounds quickly heal. A brown-haired girl named Maria warns her friends Miranda and Alice that the fight will be difficult. The knights draw their weapons and prepare for battle. Inori draws his dark swords, fully healed from his wounds. Maria is sure that if you cut off his head, he won't grow a new one. Inori activates All-Seeing Eye and sizes up her opponent. She holds in her hands a magical sword that emits yellow lightning. Suddenly, the vampire's foot freezes to the floor. Another girl used ice magic to immobilize the enemy. The third girl fires a magic arrow that pierces Inori's side. The vampire notes that the power and speed of their magical weapons are truly excellent. Maria blows off part of Inori's jaw with an electric sword. She aimed at the neck, but the enemy managed to dodge. The angry girl retreats and prepares for the next attack. The protagonist is looking forward to a real fight where he can fight seriously. Without trying to break the ice, he simply cuts off his own leg. And he jumps up, simultaneously taking out Gleipnir. Maria is surprised that he still regenerates. She thinks that he avoided the attack with his jump, but the moment he lands, he will become vulnerable. Suddenly, she hears the painful screams of her friends. Miranda and Alice lie on the floor, bound together by super strong threads. Inori says that he has a busy schedule today and he is already tired of this team battle. He wants to fight against the second strongest knight here alone. Their fight will be an excellent warm-up before the duel with Egiana. Maria remarks that he is indeed brave to be going to fight the leader of the knights. Inori quickly reads her rival's characteristics. He asks why the strongest of the knights, besides Egiana, works in a team with the maidens and not alone. The vampire doesn't understand why she cares so much about her friends if they easily become ballast in battle. Egiana's deputy is angry at the unfeeling demon's question. She delivers a sweeping blow and tells him to shut up. After all, the demon cannot understand her human feelings. With her next attack, she breaks Inori's shadow sword. The young man quickly takes out daggers from the shadows. He continues to fight, beginning to really enjoy the battle. Maria thinks that he has the talent of a real swordsman and is not sure that he will be able to stand up to this fight. She remembers the day when Egiana first introduced her to the squad of battle maidens. The girls then looked in surprise at the sudden addition to the group. Maria was already expecting a cold reception, having learned from bitter past experiences. But the girls warmly welcomed the newcomer and quickly became her best friends. That day, Maria felt like part of a team for the first time and was able to free herself from the curse of loneliness. Now she's yelling at Inori not to look down on her comrades. The demon praises her warlike spirit and asks her to continue in the same spirit. In the heat of battle, Maria does not notice how the threads of Gleipnir close around her. Inori wants to continue the fight and is currently loosening the bonds. Suddenly, Maria jumps to the side and runs towards her comrades. The irritated vampire is not going to let her go so easily. The threads entangle her sword, forcing her to sit down next to her captured friends. Maria wants to free the girls so that they can fight the enemy together. She is confident that as a team, they will be able to defeat him and avenge Elf. Suddenly, her friend Alice breaks free from her bonds with a growl. The girl, turned into a ghoul, bites Maria on the shoulder. Miranda also becomes a monster and clings to Maria's leg. Inori says that he has already killed them and turned them into ghouls. The next to stand up is the deceased elf, shielding Inori. The vampire has lost interest in the fight and is ready to leave Maria to the ghouls. He walks towards the balcony, ordering his familiars to deal with her. Maria looks in shock at the bodies of her dead friends, defiled by dark magic. In a rage, she calls for Inori to come back as the ghouls approach her. The battle maidens begin to devour their friend alive, who is no longer able to fight. Inori moves on, listening with pleasure to Maria's dying cries. Now only the kingdom's strongest warrior remains, the head of the knights, Egiana Izzy. Throughout the castle, shadow wolves are killing the remaining soldiers. Egiana runs down the corridor, trying to figure out what's going on. She senses a dark presence, but doesn't know who is its source. The unpleasant feeling in her chest intensifies, urging her to run faster. In the training arena, she sees someone's severed head. The girl recalls that her intuition has never let her down. She walks slowly to the center of the arena. Egiana carefully raises her head and tries to identify the deceased. She immediately recognizes the face of Prime Minister Bitray, beheaded by an unknown enemy. Egiana hears the sound of flapping wings somewhere above. Inori tells her that the moon is beautiful today. According to him, in his world everyone knows this phrase. The head of the knights quickly recognizes his student. The smug vampire declares that the head is a gift for her. Egiana carefully places Bitray's head on the ground. She asks Inori where he got his demon wings from. The protagonist soars silently through the sky, glancing at his dark wings. Egiana reproaches him for losing his human pride, since he sold his soul to demons. Inori looks at her former mentor in surprise. He says that he doesn't understand her words about pride, because he simply lives the way he wants. Egiana states that the reason to simply live cannot be an excuse. After all, she fights for her country and staged a coup for it. A girl can understand such an act for the sake of family, personal desires, or even revenge. Egiana is convinced that she should have taught him better, and then he would not have become a demon. She asks Inori for forgiveness for her mistakes. The protagonist is confused by her stubbornness and desire to continue her role as a mentor. He lands and says that he appreciates her lectures, but finds them funny, considering that he was the one who killed Bitray. Inori declares that the coup is over and asks what she should fight for now if the country is gone. Egiana is convinced that they can cope without the king. Inori interrupts her, not wanting to listen to any more moral lectures. He states that she does not fully understand the situation. His dead wolves emerge from the shadows. They bring with them captured soldiers from all over the castle. The vampire declares that there is no longer any army. Egiana looks at her captured comrades in shock. Inori says he killed most of the soldiers and captured the survivors. He also has a squad of battle maidens in captivity. He states that Egiana is left all alone. The vampire notes that the bound fighters can still be saved. But for this, the head of the knights must sacrifice himself. Inori is irritated that Egiana continues to consider him as her student who has strayed from the right path. He thinks about how to put moral pressure on her to force her to fight. After all, if she gives up, it will be completely boring. Inori continues to explain her situation to her as Egiana silently removes her sword from her belt. She raises her second blade, which she had not shown in training before. Inori asks what she's up to. The girl continues to stand silently with her sword raised. Egiana brings her sword down with force, piercing the floor of the training arena. She says it was her silent prayer. Prayer for comrades who were humiliated and killed, and for the friends she will now have to kill. The head of the knights activates his battle sword, channeling magical power through it. Egiana is convinced that her comrade's sacrifice will not be in vain. Inori asks if she's really ready to sacrifice the order. The girl replies that she has trained these knights all her life, and has the right to sacrifice them all. The protagonist is surprised by her sudden fighting spirit. He says that then the country will be left without nobility and army, and will no longer be able to be called a country. Egiana notes that the people will not disappear. It doesn't matter that the nobility is rotten, the army is destroyed, and the royal line is broken. As long as there are people left, she will continue to fight for her country. This is her reason to live on. Inori is amazed by her powerful magical aura. He thinks that now things are really getting interesting. With a mad grin, he activates both eyes, preparing for the hardest battle of his life. Egiana asks why he is so happy. The vampire apologizes for underestimating her and showing ignorance. He also regrets that he deceived her a few minutes ago. Now he's going to be brutally honest. All the soldiers have long been killed and turned into ghouls. Egiana looks grimly at the mutilated corpses of her subordinates. Inori states that all her comrades are dead and will now fight against her. Egiana silently surveys her new opponents. She turns to Takafuji Inori with sadness, and he quietly says that he too cannot be saved. Her sword glows brightly with a red light, overflowing with the magical power of its owner. Egiana finally acknowledges Inori as her enemy, and not just a misguided student. The vampire quickly takes off, not wanting to get hit by his opponent. With one sweeping attack, Egiana destroys all the rebellious soldiers. Inori understands what the leader of the Knights' trump card is. This is her mithril sword, long ago created using the lost technologies of ancient masters. The vampire summons shadow blades, deciding to keep his distance for now. In Egiana's eyes, he sees a dark determination to kill him. Inori says he intends to use all his strength in this fight. After all, only in this way will he be able to experience for the first time the sweetness of a real battle to the death. The surviving ghoul reaches out to Egiana's leg. With a swing of her sword, she destroys the arena floor along with the reanimated corpse. Inori mockingly calls out another batch of her former comrades. This time, there is a squad of battle maidens among them. Egiana glances at her dead charges. She remembers their smiles and training together. With the next blow, the head of the knights destroys the growling ghouls. Shadow wolves pounce on her from above. The girl cuts them down with quick blows without moving from the spot. She asks Inori why he doesn't attack himself. Egiana takes out her second sword and says that she will then attack first. Inori thinks that it's better not to approach her from behind, and that frontal attacks would be pure suicide. He remembers Arya's words during the lecture about why Egiana is so strong. The princess then explained that the leader had always been strong, but after receiving an ancient weapon from the queen, she became invincible. According to Arya, that ancient weapon was a sword whose sharpness was enhanced by any magic. In the present day, Egiana continues to kill new ghouls. With graceful swings of her swords, she deflects Inori's shadow daggers. The dark magic knives disintegrate under her blows. Inori wonders if there is a limit to the sharpness of her ancient sword. After all, now it seems he is capable of cutting through anything. Egiana uses the air hammer spell, slamming Inori into the wall. He is surprised that she switched to magic and crushed his wings so easily. The head of the knights notices that he will no longer fly. Inori slides along the wall, trying to avoid a close collision. Egiana continues to swing her sword, trying to catch the nimble Inori. He jumps up, dodging a close blow, and they find themselves behind her with a dagger in their hand. But the surprise attack doesn't work, and his severed hand with the dagger falls to the ground. Inori lands on the arena a few meters away from Egiana. He says that the strongest knight of humanity is truly unapproachable. Egiana notes that with such dexterity and flexibility, he was an excellent acrobat. Inori replies that she is not interested in such a profession. With his right eye, he sees her mithril sword's ability to activate without a magic circle. He asks if mithril weapons are effective against demons. Egiana says that Arya's lectures have been good for him. Inori is grateful for the praise, frantically thinking about how he can defeat such an enemy. The girl moves forward, easily parrying his attacks with daggers. The vampire understands that at this rate he could lose. Egiana approaches and asks what else he can show her. Takafuji Inori asks permission to ask one question. Egiana Izzy stops and waits for his next words. The vampire asks about her reaction speed, which allows her to react to attacks from blind spots. He notices that she has covered the area around herself and her surroundings with a thin layer of magic. And that is why she so easily senses anyone who tries to get close to her from any side. Egiana says he is completely right and praises his detection skill. But her skill has a weakness. Her technique constantly emits magic and can be easily tracked, unlike detection. Therefore, this ability is not suitable for reconnaissance and covert operations, but is very useful in combat. The head of the Knights notes that she can also see his Gleipnir threads perfectly well. Inori is annoyed to realize that the trap with the shackles won't work. Then he simply takes control of the threads, trying to grab Egiana. She swings her sword and easily cuts through the super-strong Gleipnir. Inori retreats, seeing the new limits of her ancient mithril sword's sharpness. Egiana rushes after him, but suddenly feels someone's ominous presence. Huge blue needles crash into the arena at high speed. From the castle wall, the risen Fenrir, who retained his powers after death, shoots at her. He still has the ability to turn his fur into projectiles by passing magic through it. Inori notes that the attack was outside her range of perception, but Egiana still dodged it. The unharmed female knight is surprised by how many subordinates her former student has. She praises his idea of attacking from outside the area, but at that distance, the attacks took too long to reach her. The protagonist realizes that she simply dodged it thanks to her reaction speed. Egiana uses Airhammer again to perform a magical strike from a distance. Fenrir manages to dodge the attack at the last moment without taking any damage. Inori commands the ghouls to shoot at her from a distance and not get too close. The protagonist summons dozens of daggers from the Shadow Vault. With a combined attack of daggers and Fenrir's needles, he hopes to hold Egiana in place. The girl repels all attacks and wonders how much stamina Inori will have at this pace of battle. The vampire thinks that she needs to fight until she runs out of magical power, but during the entire battle, she did not show a single sign of fatigue. Egiana continues to methodically destroy the remaining ghouls. Inori frantically thinks about how to fight further when the ghouls and daggers run out. He senses her magical field, which allows him to track any attacks, and he sees her endless endurance and ancient weapons that can cut through anything. But even without this, Egiana is fast enough to easily dodge Fenrir's needles. Inori needs a way to strike close, outside her detection range. For the sake of victory, he is ready to give his all and surpass his limits. There is no retreat. You can either emerge victorious from this battle or die. Egiana deduces Inori's plan to attack while she defends herself from the dead wolf's attacks. She calls him naive and prepares to show him another trick from her arsenal. The head knight creates a red energy shield against Fenrir's needles and charges at Inori. With a sweeping blow of her sword, she cuts off the vampire's second hand, in which he holds a dagger. Now Inori has lost both his arms and cannot hold a weapon. The protagonist tries to retreat, but it is too late. Egiana quickly approaches him, saying that the fight is over. She prepares to cut off his head with a mithril sword so that he cannot grow it back. Inori grins ominously and says that nothing is over yet. Directly below her appears an entrance to the Shadow Vault where the ghoul is hiding. The dead wolf bites her leg, breaking through her magical armor. Egiana is slowed by the injury as Inori rushes towards her. He uses shadow threads to keep his severed arm in the air. Egiana quickly considers whether to deal with the wolf first or cut off Inori's head. She decides that without arms, the vampire is defenseless and that she needs to deal with him first. The girl turns to him and sees something she never expected. Inori grew his right arm despite being wounded by a mithril sword. He smirks and says that she shouldn't rejoice until she's completely victorious. Egiana thinks that she had previously cut off his hand with a sword other than a mithril sword and had not noticed it in the heat of battle. Inori uses Gleipnir's strings to stay in the air. This way, he doesn't fall into the field of vision of Egiana, who is already ready to chop off his head. The head of the Knights belatedly notices the ultra-thin threads and decides to get within striking distance herself. Inori reminds her of her left formation eye and activates the hypnosis spell. A magic circle appears before Egiana's face, attempting to dominate her mind. The magic of another world begins to take effect, and the girl's eyes glow yellow. Egiana resists the mind control and cuts the seal with her sword. The protagonist is surprised that her mithril sword can even cut through magic circles. Inori pulls herself with threads to a safe distance from the enemy. Egiana kills the shadow wolf that bit her leg, freeing herself from its grip. She looks at Inori darkly and asks what will happen next. The vampire shrugs with a smile, not knowing what to answer her. The head of the knights asks why he is so happy, to which Inori replies that he is having fun. He is sure that Ejian also has fun giving it her all in a fight with a strong opponent. The girl smiles, unexpectedly agreeing with his words. Inori makes an evil grin and opens the shadow vault. He shoots daggers at his opponent from above, wanting to end the fight as quickly as possible. The vampire jumps back, avoiding the approaching Ejiana. He looks at the summoning circle on his sleeve and memorizes it with his left formation eye. A huge summoning circle appears behind Ejiana. The head of the knights turns around, preparing to cut through the enemy's magical attack again. Suddenly, Inori himself emerges from the center of the circle, a split second ahead of Ejiana's reaction. The surprised girl does not have time to defend herself, pulling her hand back to strike in a circle. Inori hopes to catch her hand before she attacks, preventing her from using her magic sword. With a quick movement, he grabs the head of the knights by the shoulder, not allowing her to finish the blow with her second sword. Getting closer to her face, Inori opens his mouth wide, revealing his true form as a monstrous vampire. Ejiana thinks that things are bad and that with her leg bitten she won't have time to dodge, and the mithril sword in the other hand simply won't make it in time. She comes up with an idea that will give her a chance to win and finish the fight. She activates the air hammer spell, this time concentrating on her left hand. The magic creates a strong pressure, forcing her hand to fly sharply in the desired direction. This allowed her to accelerate for a brief moment, enough to secure victory. Inori notices her technique, but realizes it's too late to dodge. Using the hammer, she turned her hand into a flying projectile that would fall on him in the next moment. The blow of the mithril sword lands directly on the protagonist's neck. With a swift swing of his sword, Ejiana cuts off Inori's head. The vampire does not have time to react and senses imminent defeat. Having lost his head, he only has time to pronounce the name of Ejiana. She shatters her arm armor due to the air hammer accelerating too quickly. The girl put all her strength into the final blow to put an end to this long fight. The demon vampire's head falls to the floor of the training arena with a dull thud. Ejiana stands over the corpse of a fallen enemy, releasing the mithril sword from her left hand. Fenrir rushes at her from behind, wanting to avenge his fallen master. The head knight cuts down the shadow monster with a swift swing of his sword. Fenrir is mortally wounded, unable to carry out his revenge. His body disintegrates in space into clots of dark energy. Inori's head lies on the arena a couple of steps away from his body. A sweaty Ejiana smiles tiredly and says goodbye to her former friend and student. Putting down her sword, she takes his head and says that she really did have fun. The head doesn't even remember the last time she fought to her last breath. She cancels the field of perception and thinks about searching for the second princess. The girl is distracted from her thoughts about the kingdom when Inori's head suddenly bites off her hand. A stunned Ejiana looks down, seeing her blood splashing. The vampire's head falls to the ground again, its fangs snapping predatorily. The leader of the knights understands that this demon's main focus was his heart, not his head. Using the strings of Gleipnir, Inori controls the headless body like a puppet, and he attacks his opponent from behind before she comes to her senses. The girl manages to turn around, but it is too late to dodge. Inori kicks her in the back with all his might, sending her flying forward. Ejiana crashes into the wall, breaking through it. She sits and lets out a painful groan, feeling the pain of broken bones. The trembling girl looks up at the vampire who won this fight. Inori holds his severed head in his hands, glowing with dark energy. He slowly places his head back on his neck, activating the regeneration process. After reattaching his head, he notices that it did indeed hurt. Having completed the regeneration, he says that things are much better now. Ejiana is surprised that even with a mithril sword, she couldn't stop his demonic healing. Inori agrees that mithril is indeed effective against demons, but he only works against the demons of this world, and he came from another. Ejiana is amazed by his sudden revelation. Inori explains that he realized the uselessness of mithril the first time she cut off his arm. The girl understands that he didn't grow it out on purpose and praises him for his resourcefulness. The vampire looks at his defeated rival dispassionately. Inori had previously assumed that for vampires, the head was not the most important part of the body. During the fight with Fenrir, his spinal cord was damaged, but he was able to move thanks to his heart pumping blood throughout his body. Ejiana says in a low voice that she admits defeat. Inori apologizes for tricking her again and ultimately defeating her with a sneak attack. He says he has little experience in hand-to-hand combat, to which Ejiana replies that she has noticed this. Inori notes that now he really fought like it was his last time. The head of the knights laughs at his honesty, feeling death approaching. Inori looks with interest at Egiana, who is bleeding profusely. He calls her by name, trying to keep her conscious for a few more seconds. The young man is sure that she will be bored becoming an unreasonable ghoul in his service. Therefore, he will absorb it all without a trace in order to gain new power. Inori bids farewell to Egiana and drinks her blood under the light of the full moon. Having finished the battle, he goes to the hero's prison. Ryuto, Tamaki, and Aoi hear footsteps, certain that another guard has arrived. Suddenly, they hear a familiar voice making a snide comment on their shabby appearance. Ryuto slowly looks up, emerging from the depths of his dark thoughts. He is surprised to see Inori in front of him, who has arrived with the key to their magical cage. The girls exclaim that they were worried about him and ask the guy about the latest events. Inori activates hypnosis on Aoi, saying that they should worry about themselves first. Ryuto yells at his comrade, not understanding what he is doing. Inori states that she is not doing anything wrong, then hypnotizes Tamaki. The vampire demands that Ryuto stand up and come to him. Seeing his reluctance to obey, Inori uses the hypnosis circle again. To the vampire's surprise, Ryuto remains conscious, but is unable to move of his own free will. He suggests that the power of the technique may depend on the mental capacity of the target. Inori grabs Tamaki by the head and says that he has a task for her. He wants to give Aoi the same special mission. The protagonist asks them to clean up here and give something to the inhabitants of this country. Ryuto doesn't understand what cleaning up means to him. Inori gives Tamaki a magic wand and replies that he wants to be officially considered dead after what happened at the castle. He asks Tamaki to use the staff and burn the castle to the ground so that not a single corpse remains. In response to her hesitation, the guy says that she is subconsciously limiting herself and can become much stronger. He orders Aoi to put up a barrier so they don't burn down along with the castle, and Ryuto demands an explanation. Tamaki breaks his limitations and feels a tremendous power within himself, promising to burn everything around him. Ryuto asks her to come to her senses, because everyone who survived the massacre will die in the fire. Tamaki, deprived of her will, declares that everything is fine and she will definitely succeed. The tip of the wand falls, unable to withstand the enormous flow of magical energy that the witch passes through herself. Ryuto rushes towards her in a futile attempt to stop this madness. Tamaki's magical fire spreads throughout the castle at incredible speed. The magical flame burns everything in its path, sweeping away any obstacles. The fire knocks out windows and also engulfs the outside of the castle. The royal palace lights up like a wooden house, illuminating the dark night. Inori notes Tamaki's unusual strength, as even within the barrier he can feel the heat. This is what the fully revealed blessing of the goddess can do. Leaving Tamaki to finish the job, the vampire turns to Ryuto. Inori wants him to take on the role of the one who will tell the truth to the people. A fire has been spotted in the capital, engulfing the royal castle. Passers-by stop, mesmerized by the terrifying spectacle. People gather in groups to go and help put out the fire. Meanwhile, Arya stands alone in front of the burning castle. The former princess stands motionless in front of the burning place that used to be her home. Her old life was in the past and would never return. Her cheerful younger sister Amanda, with whom she has just made peace, and her faithful servant Nayla, who helped her for many years. Her parents, with whom she had too little contact, and she herself, as the second princess, also died in this fire. Now she has become a monster with black hair and red eyes. Having accepted her new self, the girl leaves, leaving her past life behind. Inori calls out to her near the trees. She asks if he has finished cleaning. To the guy's bewilderment, Arya explains that with his power, part of his knowledge also entered her body. Even her hair color changed. Inori says he doesn't know what it's like to be his subject. Arya responds that she feels bound by his words and thoughts, making it difficult for her to disobey or harm him. The vampire demands to give him her hand, and the girl immediately obeys. Ashamed of being treated like a dog, she slaps Inori and leaves. He tells an irritated Arya that things aren't that bad. The girl looks at him in bewilderment. The protagonist notices that black hair suits her much better than before. Arya is grateful for the clumsy attempt to cheer her up. Inori grumbles, wiping the imprint of her palm off his face. Amused by this scene, the girl shows a slight smile. She says that she did not lose everything because she was saved and gained a little freedom. And now she has a new goal. If she becomes stronger than Inori, she will cease to be his subject. So now she will surpass him and regain her freedom. The protagonist looks at the girl in surprise, smiling. He notes that she is now definitely ready to leave the past behind. Inori stands up, declaring that they have decided on their goals. Now it's time to go to his domain. Arya is surprised that he managed to buy some land for himself somewhere. But the vampire explains that this is a place where they will be safer than in the city. Soon they pass through a barrier in the forest where the wolves used to live. Inori says that here they can rest and figure out their strengths. When asked about the house, he explains that there used to be a dilapidated hut here, but he improved it with magically created tools. The guy doesn't want to go into details and asks to simply consider this place their secret base. Inside, Arya notices that the house is too small for two. Inori says she will have to get used to living differently. Besides, there is only one bed. The girl states that she never really desired luxury, and she's even ready to sleep with him in the same bed. She adds sheepishly that she is in his debt, since she survived only thanks to his strength. Inori looks at the former princess sarcastically. Arya says that for now she will pay him back as best she can. The vampire thinks for a moment. He sarcastically remarks that she responded before he had time to give the order. Next, he demands that she undress. The embarrassed girl trembles with fear but obeys the order. In one movement, she exposes herself, throwing off her worn-out veil. Inori activates the Eye of All-Seeing and looks at Arya for a few seconds. Next, he uses the weapon creation skill. The young man creates new magical clothes for her. Arya, embarrassed, accepts the gift and looks at it with bewilderment. Inori demands that she get dressed and not get in his way with her rags. He explains that now he needs a warrior servant, not a slave in bed. He has the whole world before his eyes. He can choose any partner he wants. The guy sarcastically adds that Arya has too high an opinion of herself if she thinks she can pay him off so easily. The girl blushes deeply, not knowing what to respond to such rudeness. Having collected her thoughts, she thanks him for the clothes, and he runs out onto the balcony to change his clothes alone. Inori is surprised again that he previously thought of her as a heartless doll. On the balcony, Arya sits naked with clothes in her hands. She buries her head in her knees, embarrassed by her failure. The girl is ashamed that she even thought of offering him such a way to pay off the debt. In the distance, she notices smoke from a fire in the royal castle. Arya thinks that she just wanted to punish herself for being the only one who survived and abandoned her country. The vampire quietly asks why sleeping with him can be called a punishment. The former princess didn't even notice him approaching. Inori pretends to be offended by her rudeness. Arya sheepishly apologizes and thanks him again for saving her. She justifies herself by saying that she simply didn't have time to calm down. She states that it doesn't matter that she is no longer human. The main thing is that she chose life and doesn't regret anything. Inori looks closely at her subordinate. To her delight, he asks for help with something. The young man says that he received several new skills in the castle and cannot level them up on his own. He needs help with developing sexual techniques. Arya is shocked to hear words about sex. Inori wants to see if the level will rise if he touches her breasts. He is surprised by Arya's embarrassed reaction, as just a minute ago she was ready to sleep with him. The girl states that just touching is wrong and shouldn't happen. Tired of arguing, Inori directly orders her to help. They hide in the hut, doing their dark deeds. A few days later, Inori learns her skills while Arya learns to fly. He gained a variety of skills from killing people in the castle, including mastery of various weapons and cleaning techniques. He even has skills in pretending to be an aristocrat, although he doesn't know if he will need them anymore. He yells at Arya to come down for a minute. The vampire lands and disperses her wings of dark energy. She gained the genius ability, which allows her to quickly learn new skills. Inori is surprised at how easily she learned to fly. When asked about her clothes, Arya replies that they are perfect for flying and fighting. The guy is annoyed that she can calmly float under the scorching sun while he becomes weak due to the wrath of the sun god. He hands her a black sword and orders her to draw it. Arya pulls out the blade, which is immediately filled with her magical power. Inori explains that this is Egiana's former sword, which he enhanced with dark magic. The girl is amazed that she now owns such a legendary weapon. Inori says that he tried to use it himself, but was unable to due to his inability to use the magic of this world. He admits that he cannot use magical tools. That's why the vampire gives this sword to Arya, since she was able to use it right away. The girl sarcastically asks what if with him she becomes stronger than him. Inori is confident that he doesn't need to rely on toys to be stronger, and they will fight without weapons. The protagonist decides to sum up what they have now. Arya can use magic and magic items, but she cannot level up her skills. Inori is not capable of magic in this world, but he is constantly growing in strength and developing his skills. The young man is confident that he will still be stronger in battle, since his strength is constantly growing. Arya notices that she also has access to this ability. She shows him her vampire fangs. Inori realizes that she too can become stronger by sucking other people's blood. The guy talks about his first experience of drinking the blood of a demonic bird. The vampire states that now that they have figured out the skills, it is time to move on. Arya asks sarcastically if he was waiting for her to get comfortable, but suddenly hears someone's voice. From the shadows emerges a small Fenrir, whose revival Inori was waiting for. The protagonist tells the wolf not to worry, since he himself ordered him to distract Aegiana. Arya is delighted to learn the name of this adorable fluffy creature. To the weakened wolf's dismay, she hugs him like a pet. Tired of being harassed, the wolf escapes to a shadowy vault. A saddened Arya decides that she will now call him Fenrir. Inori notices her change of mood. Arya explains that she loves animals and has always looked after pets that bored her sister. The vampire declares that they are leaving here tonight. He has not yet decided on his goal and wants to visit neighboring countries. Inori wants to start in a country where heroes are not summoned. But Arya says there are no such countries. By agreement, all 12 countries must summon 3 heroes each. Inori thinks for a moment. He notices that too many heroes appear in this world. After all, there are still 11 countries and 33 heroes. The guy remembers that blonde guy and his comrades. Thinks about other heroes he hasn't met yet. And he remembers Ryuto, Tamaki, and Aoi, who now know about his true nature. This means that he will soon have many more powerful enemies. At the same time, somewhere far away, a magical ritual is taking place. The bodies of humans, mages, elves, dwarves, and beastmen are used as fuel for the ritual. The blonde demoness calls for someone to return to a new vessel. She holds a glowing demon skull in front of a mountain of corpses. Suddenly, the skull begins to grow a skeleton and flesh. A demon figure with a long tail appears in the air. The demoness and her servants rejoice at the success of the ritual. The new demon takes the form of a red-haired man with a beard. The demoness announces that the demon king Ignoa has returned. After some time, the action moves to a small trading town. Arya walks down the street in the sunlight with a slight smile. There are plenty of shops around and people who have come to buy something. Someone offers Arya a couple of loaves of bread. The baker says that she helped him out a lot earlier and he wants to repay her somehow. Another vendor hands her a bag of vegetables. The girl thanks everyone, laden with free products. Now she has a new nickname, Aerie. Some time had passed since he and Inori moved to the provincial town of Regan in the Lin theocracy, a small market town famous for its brick streets. In the theocracy, the clergy plays a vital role. That's why even in a small town there is a big church. They registered with the Adventurers Guild to earn money. Inori took the pseudonym Kiri, but he rests during the day, so Arya works alone. Thanks to this, she met many people in the city. Suddenly, Inori flies out of the doors of the guild building. Blood is coming out of his nose and flying into the air. It flies several meters away and breaks a wooden bench. Arya calls him and tries to understand what is happening. A fair-haired girl in a cleric's robe emerges from the guild. She is surprised that the guy is still conscious after her blow. The girl is amazed at the talent hidden in such a womanizer. She states that Kiri has intrigued her. As a holy knight of the Lin theocracy, the fanatic Raskos accepts him as a student to guide him on the true path. The girl lifts him by his tie and waits for him to come to his senses. Arya looks at the unfolding scene in shock. She drops bags of groceries, which scatter on the ground. The fanatic strokes Inori's face with a smile. Arya thinks that this is how her adult life outside her home country began. The action moves back a few minutes to Inori. He sat in the guild and drank calmly. The other adventurers looked at him with hostility. Inori thought that after joining the guild, he started drinking heavily. The waitress brings him the bill, but he tells her to put it all down to Ari. Unlike him, she quickly rose through the ranks by completing guild missions, and even earned the nickname, Black Rose of Ari. She even gained fans among adventurers, and Inori drank all day long, bound by the hatred of the sun god. The other adventurers didn't understand why Black Rose would fall for such a parasite. The man with the red beard invites him to go to work too. He sits next to her and is indignant that Ari works all day while he only eats and drinks. Kiri thinks that this old man has become his only drinking buddy from the guild. He used to drink alone, but recently joined him on drinking sprees. Through drinking, Inori tried to increase his resistance to poison and communicate with other adventurers. But over time, everyone began to avoid him. except this old man. The bell on the door announces the arrival of guests. A fair-haired girl in church clothes enters the building. Inori is surprised that the holy knight came to such a place. He invites her to join them and have a drink too. The girl says that drinking so much is harmful for the soul and body. Kiri notices the church symbol on her forehead. He asks to take a closer look and wants to get closer to her. The girl raises her hand with lightning speed to strike, and he declares that one cannot touch the sign of faith in God. Inori doesn't have time to react to the blow. Ari comes to the guild with food and calls for a partner. The adventurers watch in surprise as Kiri is knocked out by the churchwoman's blow. Having broken the bench, Inori thinks that he said something wrong. The girl picks it up and looks the guy in the eyes. The adventurers rejoice that someone has finally beaten this drunkard. The churchwoman says she will help him improve. After all, God will not leave anyone without attention. She throws Inori over her shoulder and leaves. The fanatic feels someone's gaze on him. She notices Arya and asks what she wants. Ari asks what she's going to do with him. Inori doesn't move, continuing to hang on her shoulder. The churchwoman advises not to worry about this impudent fellow who was loafing around in the guild. She is sure that there is still something masculine left in him. So the church and God teach him how to become a real man again. Arya and the adventurers watch the girl leave. One adventurer says that Ari is now free and invites her on a date. The girl quickly collects the food scattered on the ground, and he hands them over to his embarrassed colleagues. Ari runs after the churchwoman, planning to follow her actions. The adventurers are sure that Kiri is blackmailing her, because why else would she be with him? The action moves to the city church. The blonde girl throws the drunk Inori onto the bench. She reaches out to him and activates her magic. Kiri sees bright blue energy flowing out of her. The fanatic claims that he will instantly cure him of intoxication. The spell heals the guy, helping him sober up. The girl advises him not to get drunk like that again. When he asks her about herself, she calls herself a holy knight. The girl says to call her simply Fauna or Mentor. But this can wait, because they have important business. Fauna is going to take him to prayer. Arya watches them indignantly from around the corner of the building. She doesn't like that the two are already holding hands. She feels a pang of jealousy and doesn't know what to do. Inori and Fauna walk towards the entrance of the church, still holding hands. Someone behind Arya says that the girl is very dangerous. She sees a small Fenrir behind her, peeking out from the shadows. The wolf says he feels Fauna's divine blessing. Arya looks after the churchwoman in surprise. When Fenrir asks if she felt it, the girl shyly agrees. Fauna tells Inori that this is the largest church in the region and he is very lucky. She notices a large group of people ahead who have come to pray. The churchwoman asks Kiri's name, realizing too late that she forgot to ask. Together they approach a large statue of the supreme goddess. Around her are 4 statues of other goddesses, subordinate to the will of the supreme deity. Fauna says that if Kiri doesn't know how to pray, then let her repeat after her. She teaches him to put 5 fingers together in a prayer gesture, and then you need to close your eyes and pray. Inori decides not to argue and play along with her. He had never believed in anything or prayed before. The vampire begins to pray, ready to try something new. Somewhere far away, a blue-haired goddess senses his presence. Inori also feels like she is being watched. He feels the flow of energy coming from all the people in the church. They all connect them with someone, and the strongest current comes from Fauna. Detection also doesn't help to find out who is watching them. The vampire feels like someone is looking straight into his soul. He begins to get angry, not wanting to open up so easily to an unknown deity. Inori activates the all-seeing eye and studies the properties of energy communication. A minute later, he breaks the connection with the goddess. Fauna is surprised that he devotes himself entirely to prayer. She is glad that he has understood the importance of contact with God. And now that his mind is clear, they can move on. Kiri looks again at the large statue of the supreme goddess. A soft smile was frozen on the statue's face. Inori no longer feels the connection, but he is now interested in that mysterious power. He hopes to return here later and find its source. Far from the planet in another dimension, the supreme goddess asks if someone really cut the path. The blue-haired goddess replies that she herself did not expect such a thing from a man. 5 goddesses turn their attention to the mysterious otherworlder Takafuji Inori. Meanwhile, the bell at the entrance to the guild rings. A tired Kiri enters the building. The adventurers watch his return with displeasure. Inori walks towards his hooded friend, who continues to drink peacefully. The red-haired old man looks at Kiri in surprise. His face is covered with bruises and cuts from his recent training. He begins to explain that Fauna used magic to strengthen her fists, and she cheerfully beat him up on the training ground. She didn't stop for a second, demanding that he fight too. The girl continued to hit him, encouraging Kiri to fight back. Inori noticed that it was not for nothing that they called her a fanatic. Fauna continued her advance with a smile. With the help of the all-seeing eye, Kiri sees that she is striking with the forces of light, which is why they feel so painful for the vampire. To Fauna's surprise, Inori manages to dodge. She says that his gaze is sharp, but it's a pity that his body can't keep up with it. Inori turns off the all-seeing eye, not wanting to show it to the fanatic. Fauna says that she will continue to hit him, and over time his body will begin to keep up with the blows. Arya watches their training from behind the trees, amazed. She asks Fenrir if they should intervene. The wolf says that since the owner himself does not run away, it means he has some personal goal in staying with her. Arya ponders his words darkly. Seizing the opportunity, Inori escapes from training. He finishes telling the old man in the guild about his misadventures. Kiri complains that it was the most desperate escape of his life. The old man notices that the girl really turned out to be a holy knight. People like her kill demons for God's sake and fight with the forces of light using magical weapons. And since Inori doesn't know how to use magical tools, there's no point in him learning from her. Kiri readily agrees with his words. Suddenly he realizes something strange. He never told the old man that he couldn't use magic weapons. Fauna, who was looking for a runaway student, enters the guild. She exclaims loudly, startling Inori. The girl praises him for his quick escape and demands that he return to training now that he is rested. Fauna drags him towards the exit while Inori calls the old man for help. His faithful drinking companion does not respond to his pleas, and he continues to drink peacefully, completely alone. At the new training session, Fauna continued to beat Inori. Arya and Fenrir watched cautiously from a distance. Fauna didn't understand why the student wasn't getting stronger. To avoid further beatings, Inori begged her to go to church again. Fauna is very happy because of his sudden request. She is sure that her training was effective, since he decided to return to God so quickly. Inori smiles falsely and looks forward to exploring the church again. In front of the statue of the Supreme Goddess, he notes that the feeling of being watched is no longer there. He wants to know if there are any connections with other believers. Detection earlier didn't help, so he decides to use the power of another world. The vampire activates the all-seeing eye and begins assessing all objects in the room. He doesn't see anything interesting in the nuns and their clothes. The statue doesn't make much of an impression either. Suddenly he notices something strange in the statue's hands. Hidden there is the stone of holy light, born at the base of the divine tree, and serving as a medium for the powers of the goddess. Inori understands that it is through him that communication with people in the church is carried out, and it is doubtful that by the Supreme Goddess they mean his acquaintance who sent him here. There are 5 statues of 5 goddesses here, and they clearly do not favor the main character. Having finished praying, Inori prepares for new torments. He notices his mentor looking excitedly at someone in the crowd. The vampire sees there a middle-aged man in the robes of a holy knight. Fauna calls him Ravan, the 4th commander of the Holy Knights and the hero of Regan. 10 years ago, he protected Regan from escaped demons and continues to be the city's protector. Inori identifies him as his mentor's boss. Fauna decides to say hello to him and orders Inori to return alone. The vampire doubts that Ravan is stronger than Egiana, but still wants to evaluate him. The Holy Knight suddenly turns an attentive gaze in his direction. Inori hides in the crowd, avoiding detection. He decides not to try again in case Ravan sensed his judgment. The nun asks the Holy Knight if everything is okay. He replies that he smelled his kind. Inori quietly leaves the church without attracting attention. After some time, Arya is sitting lazily on the roof of the building. She watches from afar as Inori and Fauna begin training again. Arya is upset that he now spends all his time with Fauna and even stopped talking to her. Fauna states that he has become better at moving and can even dodge magical weapons. Inori is grateful for the praise, remembering Egiana and her swords. Fauna is sure that he is fixated on protection and asks if he has a weapon. Inori thinks for a couple of seconds. The only things that come to mind are dark magic and shadow daggers. Deciding not to talk about this, he says that he does not own a weapon. Fauna hits the ground, knowing what he needs to do. She demands that the student buy himself a weapon. Otherwise, he will not become a competent adventurer. Fauna also states that there will be no training tomorrow due to her meeting with Commander Ravan. Inori is annoyed that he will have to look for a weapon on his only day off. Fauna warns that the day after tomorrow she will check what he will buy there. At sunset, Inori finds Arya on the roof. He has long noticed her surveillance and asks if she has come up with a way to defeat him. Black Rose sadly replies that she hasn't come up with anything. He and Fenrir had made a plan together, but they had not succeeded. The vampire sits down next to Arya. She asks why he came to her. The young man says that tomorrow he is going to buy himself a weapon, and asks her to go with him. After all, she knows the city and the local residents well. But if she is busy, then Inori can handle it himself. Arya happily agrees, convincing him that there are no requests in the guild anyway. The girl is glad that she can be useful to him again. She demands to return home and prepare for tomorrow. Inori is surprised by her change of mood, but Arya stubbornly pulls him along with her. The next day, they go shopping. Ari bought herself something to eat and shows Kiri some interesting shops. Inori remarks that he understands her joy. But that's not why they came here. The girl says that they are just heading towards the armory. Soon they enter a weapons store. Arya notes that many travelers have recommended it. Inori evaluates the weapon with the all-seeing eye. He is looking for a sword that will not be a magical instrument. Arya offers him a red braid with a devil design, thinking it's very cute. He refuses, but the girl is sure that it would suit him. Inori remarks that she could also buy something. She needs the sword on a permanent basis, since she now only uses the black sword in extreme cases. Arya agrees that she needs something comfortable and simple. She notices an exquisite mithril dagger behind a display case. The protagonist asks what she found there. He takes the dagger from the display case, ignoring Arya's protests. The young man assesses the material as high-quality mithril, and the dagger itself should be an addition to the main weapon. Inori asks the girl not to worry about the price, because he has a lot of money for killing demons at night. In response to Arya's doubts, he states that he spends his days sitting in the bar anyway, and this way he can at least pay her a little for her work. The girl blushes, not knowing what to say in response. After leaving the armory, Inori is unhappy that he didn't find a weapon for himself. Arya asks if he understands the meaning of this dagger. The vampire has no idea what she's talking about. The girl smiles happily, deciding not to tell him. She notices another armory in an unremarkable house. Behind the door, they see dirt and spiders. Inori demands that she not be afraid and follow him. They enter a small shop, in the middle of which stands an elderly man in a tailcoat. An elegant salesperson welcomes guests. The couple silently waits for him to continue. The seller explains that he works to order and can make unique weapons for them. The vampire is interested in non-magical weapons. The seller is confident that he will be able to meet any expectations of his customers. Inori activates the all-seeing eye's evaluation. After a couple of seconds, he's ready to place an order. The seller is ready to accept it, and he asks Inori to go to the table to study his physique and fencing techniques. The protagonist wants to take Arya with him. The seller is not averse to helping both guests. Inori asks him about the untidy appearance of the store and the spiders on the walls. The old man replies that he simply found a quiet place here, just like the spider. Inori and Arya note his oddities, but go behind the counter to examine him. After finishing in the armory, they go to a cafe for lunch. Inori is unhappy that he spends so much time on the order. Arya notes that it's still faster than going through dozens of armories. The girl is pleased with the delicious tea, and the guy notices that it is the same as it was in the castle. Arya agrees, but the atmosphere around is not the same at all. It's a peaceful place where you can enjoy your meal in peace. Inori doesn't understand why he's here, but Arya grumbles that he needs to talk to someone other than food. After finishing lunch, the girl asks him what he liked about that store so much. Inori responds that his assessment revealed a high-quality selection and the owner's skill. Although as a merchant he is weak, especially with such a web at the entrance. Suddenly Fauna appears and asks about buying weapons. She claims that she was just looking for him. When Inori asks, the fanatic says that her meeting with Ravan has already ended. Fauna teases him that he is again flirting with girls instead of working. Ari declares that they are partners as Fauna jumps into the cafe. A masked man appears behind her and asks her to use the stairs. Fauna apologizes, promising to set an example of politeness for people in the future as a faithful servant of God. Her colleague from the church introduces himself as Mask and says that he has been assigned to watch Fauna. The vampire wonders what his mentor did wrong. Fauna explains that the church is questioning her relationship with Kiri, even though she explained to them that they are simply teacher and student. The mask explains that holy knights must follow their vows and remain virgins. But suddenly they appeared in the city. The beautiful Black Rose Ari and the drunkard Kiri. Rumors about them spread quickly, which irritates Inori. Mask states that Kiri intrigued him by how he managed to become the fanatic's apprentice and Ari's lazy partner. Suddenly, he pulls out a Black Rose fan club card. Mask calls himself Ari's fifth best fan and asks Kiri to tell him the secret of how he won the girl. Maska asks him to teach her this wisdom, and Fauna grumbles that he is actually a holy knight too. All four sit down together and order sweet dishes. While the girls are eating, the guys are having animated conversations. Kiri explains something to him, and Maska listens attentively and asks questions. Arya envies men who can find common ground so easily. Fauna asks if she's really friends with this drunkard. Black Rose confirms her words to the fanatic's surprise. Fauna asks about the mithril dagger on the table. She looks at Arya carefully. The fanatic notes that such a gift is synonymous with a marriage proposal and means stab me if I cheat on you. But Fauna is sure that Kiri hardly knew the subtext and simply gave it to him. The churchwoman calls Mask to return since the sun is already setting. Fauna says she was glad to meet Ari. Both churchmen say goodbye to them and leave. Inori is glad that they finally left. Mask reflects on the adventurer Kiri, and he thinks that even after meeting him in person, he still remains a mystery. Near the hotel where they live, Arya is temporarily away on business. Inori grumbles, unhappy with her departure. He reaches his room, expecting to have a good rest. Suddenly, the young man feels a strange presence inside. A strange voice in his head praises him for his attentiveness. Inori activates both eyes as the voice invites him to come in. He carefully opens the door and walks into the room. A beautiful girl in revealing clothes sits on the windowsill. She greets him warmly and introduces herself as Flux. Inori asks about the voice in his head. Flux is surprised that he has such a strong detection, but does not know about spiritual magic. The girl sits on the bed and says that she can show him what spiritual magic is. With the help of your body, of course. She takes his hand and gently asks him to come closer. Flux throws him onto the bed and sits on top of him. She is surprised that he doesn't resist at all in this position. Inori replies that he can't fight such a beauty, and he doesn't want to miss this chance. The vampire activates the hypnosis circle, attempting to control her mind. He is confident that at such a distance she will not dodge. But the magic has no effect on Flux, who gently mocks him. With a quick movement, she kisses his lips. The next second, Inori finds herself in the middle of a green meadow. Flux explains that they are in her spiritual world, their own dimension that exists inside each of them. Strong vines grow from the grass and wrap around Inori. The girl says that everything here is under her control alone. For example, she can easily get rid of clothes, which she demonstrates on Kiri, or drive you crazy with pleasure, which also shows on it, and even completely subjugate his body and soul to your will. Flux undresses and asks why a virgin like him doesn't want to hug her. She asks sarcastically if he is afraid to get involved with someone. Inori tells her to shut up. Flux wanted to continue, but suddenly noticed something strange. Streams of dark energy quickly fill her inner world. They destroy the grass and stems that hold Inori. Living darkness captures the frightened girl. Inori again demands that she shut up, oozing the dark power that has taken over her world. Flux can't understand how his soul is capable of such a thing while darkness completely fills her dimension. Arya enters the room after taking care of her business. She sees Inori on the bed, kissing the beauty straddling him. He also notices Arya continuing to kiss the numb Flux. Black Rose looks at him silently for a few seconds. Then she takes out a mithril dagger, repeating the phrase about death to anyone who betrays her. Inori pushes the motionless Flux off of herself. In his mouth are the legs of a small creature that he pulled out of the fallen girl. The vampire spits out a miniature fairy that controls the beauty's body. The fairy tearfully explains that the goddess has instructed her to seduce and subjugate Inori. But now she, the supreme wind spirit Sylph, is under the control of a vampire. The fairy is indignant that she was forced to tell everything, while Arya is touched by her appearance. Inori is surprised that the goddess from the church made the first move against him so quickly. The vampire demon demands that the fairy tell him everything about the gods and spiritual magic. Sylph refuses to obey, citing her pride as the supreme wind fairy. Inori is confident that he will make her talk. He uses his sexual technique skills and hits her between the legs with his finger. A confused Arya watches the obscene execution in shock. She closes her eyes in shame, but continues to hear the fairy's screams as Inori continues to hit her with his finger. Sylph continues to moan as his sexual technique level increases to level 4. After a few minutes, Inori releases the exhausted fairy. He asks if she has figured out who is in charge here. The guy also intends to find out what power she personally possesses. Sylph is confident that she can somehow deceive him, since he knows nothing about spiritual magic. After some time, the crying fairy tries to tell something intelligible about spiritual magic, about which she herself knows nothing. Inori is unhappy that they dragged her into the forest for this. He doubts that the indignant fairy is capable of anything at all. Sylph says that she is under his control since her hair has turned black. Inori doesn't understand why dark magic's control, which only works on inanimate matter, was able to subjugate a living fairy. But now the main thing is to maintain control of the situation, and not to unravel the secrets of your skills. When asked about other spirits, Sylph replies that they live everywhere. The fairy claims that they are flying around right now, which is why she was able to find them so easily. The vampire is unhappy that these creatures who possess spiritual magic can watch him with impunity. To his question about the visibility of spirits, Sylph replies that one can try to see them. She uses her magic and the vampires see many flying lights around. The Sylph confirms that these are lower spirits of nature. Arya praises the fairy for her amazing magic. A pleased Sylph says that although she can't use all of her magic now, her status as a higher spirit will help hide them from other people's spiritual magic. The vampires are surprised by her sudden frankness. The fairy states that after taking control of Inori, she learned something new. Now, instead of wind magic, she can release darkness, similar to a thick black wind. Inori smirks and says that he will definitely find something like this useful. The vampire demon decides to test his new ability that he received from her. The striking power of the black wind is enough to kill a demonic beetle with one blow. Arya is surprised by its destructive power. Inori reveals that he can now use darkness to create targeted explosive attacks. Sylph is surprised that Kiri mastered this power so easily. She also notes that since the beetle's body did not dissolve, it is not an ordinary demon, but one that came from the demon world. It must be a mythical beetle from the demon world, but it is unclear how it ended up here. When Inori asked, the fairy replied that such creatures could not appear in this area on their own. The protagonist notes that he himself has never seen anything like this before. Arya asks the fairy if she has been to the demon world, but Sylph denies it. The fairy notices that the forest spirits are angry, especially the local spirits of light. Inori says that she cannot see spirits, but she can understand them. According to Arya, this entire territory is protected by holy knights, and it is difficult for demons to come here. It's strange that the beetle decided to climb here alone. Inori thinks darkly about her words, and he wonders how this demon ended up here. Someone with bright blue eyes watches them from afar. A dark, hooded figure looks down on them from a distant hill. Having finished their business in the forest, the vampires return to the armory for their order. Inori takes his high-quality longsword with increased striking power. Arya compliments its design, and Kiri remarks that the sword feels like an extension of his arm. Inori hands the old man the payment and mentions the rumors about his move. The seller replies that he had been planning to leave for a long time, and Kiri became his last client. The old man doesn't know if they will see each other again, but he really hopes so. Having taken the sword, the vampires head towards the guild. When Arya asked about the money, Inori suddenly said that the teacher gave him a little extra. Black Rose doesn't understand why he didn't refuse to take money from her. Kiri saw no point in refusing and simply took them to buy the sword. An irritated Arya demands that the girl be found immediately and her money returned. The action moves to Fanya, who is praying in church. After finishing her prayer, she notices Kiri at the door. He silently shows her the sword for inspection. Fana highly appreciates the quality of the weapon, which is ideal for real combat. Inori notices that it's just an ordinary sword. He says he can't use magical tools, and even under Fana's guidance, he won't be able to become stronger. The girl looks at the student with a soft smile. She asks him point blank if he really dislikes her training. Inori replies that he hated them from the first day, shocking Fana with his rudeness. He wonders why he should do something that is obviously useless. After all, she's just wasting her time on someone who will never become stronger. Fana laughs that with such an attitude, training is really useless. She declares that she will then train him for eternity, because she has no shortage of faith in miracles. Inori is surprised by such a warm attitude towards his person. Fana looks at him, waiting for an answer. The vampire says he's ready for more training since she believes in him so much.